Reopen the meeting. Apologies to those watching online. We've had a technical problem and you've missed possibly prayers and apologies. Have I got a point of order, Councillor Gourlay?
The technology crashed just as you were asking for declarations of interest. So under Councillor Kinsella's motion, my wife runs a befriending service. So I'll leave at that point.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest?
But in non-pecuniary interest, my wife works for a charity. What did befriending?
Thank you. Councillor Wheelton.
Thank you, Chair. I declare an interest on item 16 on motion 2, waste, and motion B on the pylons. I need to keep an open mind to prevent allegations of predetermination on any issues raised on committees such as planning and environment. I will therefore be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? No. Announcements. Housekeeping. This meeting is live streamed, available for subsequent playback through Council's website and YouTube channel. Should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. If any member of the public has concerns about this, please speak to a member of staff. Please ensure that mobile phones and IT equipment are set to silent. Please speak clearly into the microphone so that both councillors and members of the public can hear you, and a reminder that the voting buttons are being used. Please press the button once to request to speak and once at the end of your speech. No need to press it again. Please ask for assistance if required. I would like to welcome Councillor Owen Ferran to his first meeting of Council following his election to the Long Eaton North Division in last week's by-election. Civic report. I've been very busy. Mostly it seems singing carols, eating mince pies and drinking mulled wine. But amongst other things, I've been to the High Sheriff's Legal Service, Ilkeston Fair, the honour of being presented to the Princess Royal when she visited Toyota. We've had a school visit to the council officers, which went very well. And also Remembrance Sunday, I attended services in Ashbourne and Chesterfield. And we had a very successful service here at County Hall on Remembrance Day. And I would like to recognise the contribution of Councillor Isherwood to that service. It was a tremendous performance. Thank you, Councillor. I think that was less than a minute for my report. I would like to vary the order of businesses to move notices of motion to give as much time as possible for motions. So when we get to the appropriate items, we'll be proposing a motion to that effect. Please can I ask, we've got a very full agenda, so everybody's concise and to the point. If you've got any motions or questions that you now think are superfluous and you don't wish to bring forward, feel free to withdraw them. But we will be trying to press on with everything and get through this busy agenda. Thank you. Item 5 is to approve the minutes of the meetings held. Sorry.
So you're not varying the order of the agenda, you're just going to vary specific motions before move up?
Going to move motions in front of questions, and when I get to the appropriate, then I'll propose a motion to do that. If that's okay. Thank you. Item 5, minutes held on the 8th of October and 13th of November. I'd like to move that these are approved. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Graves. Are there any comments on accuracy alone? Thank you. The minutes are approved. We need to vote on that, please. Can we have... All in favour of approving the minutes, please vote. Thank you. And I think that is now approved. Yeah. Item Item 6, report of the Leader of the Council and members' questions on the report. Councillor Graves, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In favour of what you've just discussed about getting through the business, I have no report.
Thank you for your contribution, Councillor Graves. Moving on to item 7, public questions, which are printed on page 25 and 28. Questions and answers have been published on the Council's website, and for viewers at home, a link is available in the YouTube channel. Answers were published yesterday. This will give the opportunity to hear all supplementary questions within the 30 minutes allowed for public questions. And I have been advised that Mr. Jones is here and would like to ask a supplementary question, please. Thank you. Would you like to come to the stand?
Good afternoon. Is this working? You can hear me? Good. Here to ask a supplementary question about the Ada Belfield Centre in Belfield. At the moment, the programme seems to be that the care sector, the residential sector, plus the cafe downstairs and the community hub, community centre, are going to be put out to private tender, but the library will be leased back to the town and the community. However, my main purpose here is to talk about and ask a question about the community support beds, which were also, we were promised, going to be located in Derbyshire Street, the Ada Belfield Hub. Now, the Ada Belfield Centre is a magnificent, purpose-built centre, which caters to a wide range of needs, and I'm going to ask a question about why those support beds are being taken out of the town and will only now be available in either Buxton, Ilkeston or Chesterfield, which will cause serious problems for family and friends trying to visit and support perhaps very aged, very frail patients who are not ready to be reintegrated into the community and need that family support as well as that care. Now, there is another aspect to this, and the second part of my question is going to be, have you considered the impact on the hospital trusts? We're barely into the winter crisis yet, and yet there's evidence of shortage of hospital beds simply because patients cannot be discharged when they no longer need a high level of medical care, but need support. It's called bed blocking. It's not the fault of the patients, makes them seem as if they're doing it deliberately. But if those care beds are not available, and if we don't increase the number of support beds, we're going to have bed blocking, and hospital beds are going to be unavailable for patients who need them.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, can I please ask that you liaise with Derbyshire County Health Service and the hospital trusts to actually find out what the true picture is and what can be done, because there are government funds available. Thank you.
Councillor Barnes, can you answer, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Jones as well, and the action group Belper altogether, who have been extremely passionate for the people of Belper, and a true example of community action. Thank you very much. Now, we're working with like our partners. We used to have the two model the system of care. We've now transformed onto a one system of care. The results are coming in. People are staying less and returning like home sooner. We've increased the number of beds in Derbyshire, and also we've opened it up to more people to access those beds across the year. These results are positive for Derbyshire, and we will be moving forward with that. Regarding transport links, our closest one is 10 miles away, from Belper. When people are discharged out of the hospital, you can't always dictate where they're going to get put into the community support beds. In fact, it could be even further. We don't have much control on that. That's down to the NHS. Okay. As for your second question, the hospital trust. Now, we provide people moving out of hospital, like who need that little bit of extra care. That's the help that we give before they return back home. So unfortunately, with the bed blocking and the winter, the flu, etc., that's a little out of the remit of the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the next member of the public, can I please remind you that supplementary questions must relate to your previous questions, and there is a limit of 150 words. So it's one question, 150 words maximum, please. Ms. Hardman, please.
Hello everybody, I'm Kath Hardman and I'm the chair of Stop the Pylons Derbyshire. It was just Stop the Pylons, but then we've grown quite big. Given that the 400 kilovolt pylons will not directly supply Derbyshire, but instead form part of the national electricity motorway, transmitting power from Scotland and the north of London to the north and to the southeast, meaning Derbyshire bears the visual and environmental and economic cost without significant benefit. Will the council agree to support the local residents and businesses throughout Derbyshire who are affected by writing to the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero and to all Derbyshire MPs before the next projected consultation due in March 26, urging them for a call for a pause for a full Green Book review of this route and assessment of alternatives?
Thank you. Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Ms Hardman, for coming here today and bringing your points to us, and thank you for your question. I think, as I've stated, we will continue to use all available avenues, right from Derbyshire County Council members throughout the entire Reform Party, right to the very top, to do our very best to make sure that Derbyshire is not impacted by, as you quite rightly state, and I could echo what you've said, about power being brought up from up there to down there through us with little regard for the impact on our countryside. So I entirely agree with your suggestions, and we will do what we can to take forward as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Barrow, please.
Councillor Wood, thank you for your reply to my question. I asked the question, would the council agree that with the right design, solar farms offer potential to provide ecological improvement? The council answered that each application to develop solar farms will be considered on a case-by-case basis when consulted on planning applications, which will include potential ecological opportunities and impacts. The council response went on to say that the ecological impacts and opportunities offered by solar projects is still an active area of research, as not all interrelated impacts on ecology are fully understood. So, if interrelated ecological impacts are not fully understood, can the council explain why such agrovoltaic schemes are being so widely and rapidly adopted globally, growing at over 15% per year and securing the co-benefits of clean solar energy generation alongside improved yields of key staple crops and increased biodiversity on the same sites? All these sites having been scientifically evaluated through numerous long-term research projects in the United States, Europe, Africa, China. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood again, please.
Thank you, Mr Barrow, for coming here today. As we've said, it's about the right scheme in the right place on the right type of land to bring the right type of benefits. Now, I would put back to you, are the sorts of large-scale solar farms that we are in principle expressing our objection to, on best quality agricultural land, are they agrivoltaic schemes? Possibly not. Are they bringing direct benefit in lower prices to our residents? Possibly not. I'll repeat that we do look carefully at the right scheme in the right place. And as you will have seen, perhaps from my answer, the recent William Thorpe scheme that was supported on an old colliery, poor grade, unable to grow land, crops for human habitat, for human consumption, I beg your pardon, has brought an 18% habitat units improvement, or will bring, and 15 plus on hedgerows. So it's about looking at the detail, and believe me, I look at the details of each scheme, but it was right that the council, as a general statement, so people know where we are coming from, expressed a general concern about these large-scale farms on best quality solar farms, best quality agricultural land, with very big battery storage farms. Now, I know I'm not supposed to go on, but through decades and decades of governments not investing in much better, more energy-dense clean energy schemes, we are left with, as the previous speaker said, bringing energy from the North Sea for schemes that might be impacting sonar on fish, birds, etc., down through our land because they don't want to spend the money putting it under the sea for other places in the UK. So, sorry, I think I've digressed a little bit, but I'm focusing on the right solutions for Derbyshire, long-term, sustainable, clean energy for industry and businesses, and that may or may not include some solar schemes in the right place. But I will remind you, we're not the planning authority for these, so we can only express opinion, and planners can only make decisions based on the laws of planning.
Thank you, Councillor. Ms Hodgkinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question was on natural flood management and, sorry, Councillor Wood. So good to hear that you're funding a post in a charity to deliver natural flood management schemes in North East Derbyshire. Relative to the cost of cleaning up flood damage and highway repairs, the cost of funding one charity post must be very small, and it would seem sensible to invest more money in prevention rather than incurring the costs of coping with the disruption of services, dealing with emergencies, repair and restoration works, not to mention loss of life and people's homes and businesses. So in a rural county like Derbyshire, there's massive potential for natural flood management, which will not only help reduce the risk of flooding to residents and businesses, but will also benefit agriculture, wildlife and water quality. So rather than leaving natural flood management to one officer in a charity, there's room to make this a more central part of the county's flood management response. So would the council consider making this post a permanent one and funding similar officers throughout Derbyshire to maximise the potential of natural flood management for the benefit of all of us? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Ms Hopkinson, for coming here today to ask your question. Now, as you'll be aware, Derbyshire County Council has picked up a bit of a black hole from previous administrations. So whilst it will be nice to set on lots of officers to do lots of things, we're not currently in a position to do this. However, as I may have briefly mentioned outside, we have led on and sponsored the local nature recovery strategy, and we always sign up to accept tree planting schemes. Now, if you look in the detail, and of course I've examined the details of the local nature recovery strategy, there are lots of opportunities in there for farmers, etc., to take advantage of it to deploy flood management schemes on their land. Now, I actually also, so yes, we support these mechanisms, and we can do that by supporting and embracing these frameworks and encouraging all sorts of stakeholders to deploy measures that will, amongst many other things, deploy flood mitigation measures. Now, as regards to the impacts of flooding, I can't help but tell you that I did 10 years at the Environment Agency in IT, albeit, but I put in a system called What's in Your Backyard, where you're entitled to look at what's in your area, whether that's a tip or a chemical works or a floodplain, and also the departmental planning system, where local authorities, districts and boroughs who brought forth housing schemes had to ask what was in the backyard of that, and the system would tell them, it's a floodplain. Oh, well, never mind, we'll still build thousands of houses, and look at what's happening. They flood. I rest my case.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Mr. Locke, please.
Right. Got it up there, yeah. So, firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Wood for a reply that reflects a balanced approach to the assessment of solar arrays and possibly battery installations. I actually agree with the Council on commercial developments of prime greenfield sites for large-scale solar. However, the new University of Sheffield's research, which has just been completed, shows that combining solar panels with farming agrivoltaics can meet UK solar energy targets without sacrificing agricultural land. As we've heard before, the main advantages are that we get dual use of the land for both green energy generation and agriculture. Both the solar panels and the crops benefit. Sun-sensitive crops are protected by the panels, and in turn the crops generate a cool environment for the solar panels that increase the yields of both elements, and it can be used on large scale. Farmers need to use less water for their crops since the shades provided by the solar panels stop water evaporating. If the energy generated in these large panels is stored in batteries, it can be used to balance out peak demands on the grid, providing even greater benefits.
Mr. Locke, I'm sorry, you're making a statement now. We're after a question.
Okay, I'm sorry. The question, when we come to it, is that as a nation, we urgently need energy security, food security. If the council is really concerned about food security, as they suggested with the large-scale solar farms on greenfield sites, will the council instead promote alternatives such as agrivoltaics? These arrays are more expensive and will need active support. And Professor Sue Hartley in Sheffield would support.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, can you answer, please?
Thank you, Mr. Locke, for your question. I would turn it back to you to ask the developers of these large-scale solar farms if they would consider making them agrivoltaics, so that indeed what you suggested, the benefits could be taken. It's not for us to dictate what they put forward. And I would ask you, have the large-scale solar farms in South Derbyshire, for example, been put forward as agrivoltaics? I think probably not. So what I'm saying is that the current situation is that these large-scale solar farms seem to be put forward with less regard for food production and more regard for crammed-in profit. Now, as regards for recommending better solutions, yes, absolutely, I am looking at better solutions. And I don't think working out the amount of energy needed by the UK and covering as much greenfield as necessary with solar farms is the answer. But that's a debate for another day. Thank you very much.
Please.
Right, I thank Councillor Hill for giving me an answer to this question. However, when I sent my question in, I directed it to Councillor Abbott, because what I'm actually asking is about the impact flags have on community health and well-being. Flags that support minorities or oppressed communities can be used to help and enhance the inclusion of these diverse groups. So I wonder why Derbyshire doesn't choose to use flags in this way.
Thank you. Councillor Hill, please.
Thank you, Ms Brown. Thank you for coming to ask your question in person today as well. I've answered the question because I'm a Highways Cabinet member and the flag policy for street lighting fell into my portfolio and that change in the previous months. I think in regard to your question, we are a government building, we are a public sector local government authority. Therefore, the flags we fly on this building are relative to the answer that I provided.
Sorry, Miss S. Brown, please.
Hello. I'm sure that most people in Derbyshire would welcome the comments I received from the Cabinet Member for Health and Communities in response to my question, which was about what the Council intends to do to promote and also act upon promoting, encouraging and supporting inclusivity and diversity in all the communities of Derbyshire. She recognised in her response to my question our very wide range of communities with unique identities, cultures and lived experiences, and the Council's desire to ensure equity for all. I'd like to pose a question in the light of the comments that she made. Given the present UK-wide misuse and abuse of the flag of St George by far right and racist groups, which have threatened social cohesion in our communities and also seriously disturbed sectors of those communities, especially racial minorities, will the Council reconsider its decision to fly the flag of St George among permitted flags on government buildings? Isn't the Union flag sufficient, which after all represents the whole of Britain?
Thank you. That's well over time. But, thank you. Councillor Abbott, please, to answer. Oh, sorry, Councillor Reid's going to answer.
No, it's up. It's come back on. Let me.
Go on, you're on. Go.
And apparently, thank you, Chair. But my understanding is the question can be asked, but any portfolio can pick that up on that as well. I take a bit of umbrance to the question, but thank you very much for coming today. Yeah. I think what you've said there in your question is a little bit misleading. Are there elements of people who may have far-right tendencies? Potentially, but you are taking a national flag that represents the nation of England and actually the very thing that you're standing for, which is inclusion and actually unity within our communities. You're actually dividing by taking umbrance and dividing out. What we stood for in our flag policy is actually about having the Union flag and the English flag as a national flag and saying, these are the national flag. The policy is there, which is now under Charlotte. All we've said from the whole point is we believe as Reform UK that we should focus on what their common unity is. All right, and that unity is under the Union flag and under the St George's Cross. People can have different views underneath that. But what we don't do is focus on diversity to its extremities that actually causes division. Because you can say diversity is our strength, but my respect, I'm answering your question. because people perceive it that way. When you focus on the things that brings us together and not on the things that divide us, it unites us. When you focus on the things and everyone is different, you end up causing more division. So I apologise, but I don't actually agree with the question. We stand for united. We stand for the United Kingdom, for a united Britain, for a united country with British values. Again, for us as a party, it's family, it's community, and it's country, regardless of your background. And I say that with an Australian accent, but I'm British. My father, who was born in Wolverhampton, sits right there. My 10-year-old daughter was born in Australia. She spent more of her life here in this country. She doesn't remember Australia. I've grown up all over the world, and I will take umbrage at anyone who says that the English flag, which I take pride in as the heritage of England, we are 4 countries in one United Kingdom, and we are proud of that fact, and we greatly are proud of where we come from, in Derbyshire, and that is another flag. And I proudly wear the St George's flag as an Englishman born in Australia, because I grew up in Papua New Guinea and all around the rest of the world, but I am British, I am English, I speak with an Australian accent, and you know what? If you want to say that anybody with a review that says our citizens should come first rather than people jumping on boats and getting into the country illegally is racist, then guess what? I'm a racist and I'm proud of it. As someone who spent £20,000 for that little girl to get into this country, I'm proud of the English flag and I will continue to be proud of it. Thank you. No, you were in denial, man. With the greatest respect.
Next question. Thank you for the question, and thank you for that, Councillor Reid. The next question comes from Mr. Wright, please. A point of order from Councillor Fordham, please.
We all sign a code of conduct about how to conduct ourselves. Can I suggest we all sign a code of conduct about how to conduct ourselves? Can I suggest that passion is one thing, but shouting at a member of the public isn't helpful? And I understand the excitement at the moment, but it doesn't reflect a nuanced position. And I think these members of the public come here, ask their question.
I
they
take your
deserve
point.
respect.
Thank you. We've noted that point, but I do know, and it may have been lost in the applause of Councillor Reid's point about what the position that his family have been in. Councillor Hatchett, did you have a point of order, please?
So I was going to make the same one. I think it's unacceptable for people in this chamber to shout at members of the public who come here and put forward perfectly sensible points.
A point noted, as I've just said, I understand Councillor Reid's position, but go on, I'll allow you to reply.
You can take the Australian out of Australia, you can't take the Australian out of the Australian. I'm passionate, and that will come across, and that is lost in the British translation. It wasn't directed at the member, but it's a passionate subject, and I'm conveying the passion over a loud and rowdy audience. So if the member feels that I've caused her offence or directed at her, the member of the public feels that I've caused it at her, I do apologise for that, because that was not the intent.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. That's very gracious, and I hope that apology is accepted. Thank you. Mr. Ingham, please. Am I right? No, Mr. Wright. Sorry.
White.
White.
So, firstly, thank you to Councillor Wood for her answer to my question. And I'm pleased to be corrected with regard to the solar farms issue. And I note the responses given earlier this afternoon to those questions. So it's good to see there is some flexibility in that. But with regard to fracking, hydraulic fracturing, I do understand the position the Council's in, that it can't fetter its discretion with regard to planning applications. But as I'm sure you're aware, the Westminster government, which currently has a de facto moratorium on fracking, has announced plans to introduce legislation that would change that moratorium into a complete ban. Would this council support such legislation?
Thank you. Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Mr. White, for coming here today. A local authority is not in a position of supporting or not supporting national laws. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Ingham, please. Mr. Ingham. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members of full council and Councillor Lawson. Thank you for your response to my first question. I have a supplementary. It relates and arises from my first in relation to financial matters and contractual issues, but it's quite straightforward. It appears from your response that officers can't demonstrate financial savings since April. Otherwise, no doubt you would have shared such positive news. To be fair, I've also looked at published expenditure up into and including October and can't see evident reductions in spend either. Based on the PwC assessment, etc., by my reckoning, that means since I attended full council in March, raising concerns around contract arrangements, up to another £18 million, if not more, has been wasted to date, and in turn cancels out actual identified savings for the 25-26 financial year, included in today's report pack, or money raised, for example, for the sale of council land of £15.7 million. You now have around 70 working days to deliver a balanced budget, and one that also doesn't waste more money. So how confident are you in achieving that, despite the challenges I appreciate you inherited?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lawson, please.
First of all, Mr. Ingham, thank you very much for your question and thank you for coming today. I don't actually recognise the figures you've quoted there. Yes, I think some of the figures you mentioned were new contracts that have been placed in the last few months. But that, as you'll see from the later report that I'll present to Council, if you stay for the rest of the meeting, we are very close to target of achieving a balanced budget this current financial year, and again against the very strong headwinds that you mentioned that we inherited, and I'll go on to talk about that a little bit further. There's also another item on the agenda that my colleague Councillor Whitbread will bring to Council, which talks about, again, not wishing to steal his thunder, but talks about the changes to the Constitution that we're proposing, that we'll be voting on later, that goes to strengthen our procurement practices and processes, particularly in one of those aspects is contract management. So we are being proactive, we are trying to change things, but obviously all these things take a little bit of time, and but we are getting there. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you both. The final question from Dr. Hobday, I understand is not here, is that correct? So moving on to item 8, petitions. There are no petitions received. Item 9 is for Council to agree to the appointment of a Chief Executive plus the interim Head of Paid Service positions. Could I call on Councillor Grace to introduce and move the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I wanted to use brevity because we need to get on with the council business. However, I just want to say how welcome it is that we now have a new chief executive to start in the new year, Neil Crittenden. I believe he's the right man to lead us in the chief executive role in this council. He will bring a new dimension to the council, and I hope that members will see that this is a very positive move. It's a very different move to how the council has operated in the past. So therefore, I will recommend that I approve the approval of the appointment of the recommended candidate in section A, B, C, D, and that on top of that we have a gap between when Simon Stevens finishes and when Neil starts. And so I have another recommendation, Mr. Chairman, to approve the appointment of Chris Henning for the role of interim Head of Paid Service from Monday the 22nd of December to 2025 until the commencement of the fixed-term chief executive, actual date to be confirmed. I move that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor. Are you reserving the right to speak, Councillor Reen? Yes. Thank you. Questions and contributions. Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I was involved in the interview panel, and Neil Crittenden was absolutely the best candidate on the day. So I'm more than happy with his appointment, and equally happy with Chris Henning's appointment as interim head of service. I am, though, slightly concerned about the whole way in which this whole process has been conducted, the way that certain officers have been treated, and a few issues around the declaration of interests around that process. I have made the monitoring officer clear around what those concerns are. And on that basis, I think our group will be abstaining. That is not a criticism of Neil or of Chris, but we just don't feel comfortable totally with the decision that's about to be made. So we will be abstaining, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kinsella, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to wish the new incumbent, Neil Crittenden, good luck in the role. Having looked at his LinkedIn page, I think some of the skills that he has will be useful, but others around some of the issues around kind of commercial aspects, maybe less so, but I do wish him success in that role. My real concern is around the performance-related pay aspect. Now, I'm not opposed to performance-related pay in principle at all. In fact, I've worked under performance-related pay schemes, so I think they have a place. I suppose the question I would ask is, what place do they have within the public sector? Now, that's a genuine question that I asked myself. So I did a bit of research on this, and I wonder whether the leader himself has done similar research. So basically, based on the research that I did around some national research and some research within local authorities, so public-related pay in the public sector, it describes much of the research describes the approach, and this kind of sums it up really as the results being mixed, a degree of uncertainty, and modest benefits. This is nothing to say of the kind of impacts it may have on the senior management team who aren't part of that performance-related pay and other members of staff, and we've seen the union's perspective on that. However, I'm kind of open on that and prepared to see how that works. But it wasn't until I got onto the performance-related pay policy itself that I did have some significant concerns. The policy it looks like it's taken about half an hour to write. It looks like it's written on the back of a fag packet. And it really lacks, when you do the research that I've done around performance-related pay and look at what some local authorities have done, it really lacks, that detail. So, for example, evidence suggests where performance-related pay works best in the public sector is where it's well designed. And often people refer to the comprehensive performance assessment. Nothing of that is in this policy. So I do have some concerns around that, and would like the administration to reflect on that and to revisit their approach to performance-related pay, so it is done in such a way that is meaningful and maybe it includes more of the senior management team. This kind of feels to me a bit like an excuse to be able to say we're paying at the bottom of the scale whilst bumping up the salary without any real oversight and transparency. So it does leave me feeling nervous and concerned about, one, how effective it is, and two, how transparent it is.
Thank you. Councillor George, please.
Thank you. I too was part of the interview panels, the various ones that went ahead over the last few weeks for Chief Executive. I wish both new post holders well, both Chris when he takes up the role and Neil when he does. I also, as with Councillor Dale, have since expressed some concerns around declarations of interests in those interviews and raised that with the monitoring officer and head of HR. But in spite of that, I think that it is, as I said in the panel, a brave move to take someone from outside with no experience of local government under their belt. That chief executive will be very reliant on existing officers and staff within the council. And I think it's incumbent on all of us as councillors, but particularly obviously the ruling group, to make sure that those officers, and especially those who applied for but were not appointed to that position, are given the support and respect they deserve to make sure that they are motivated and can continue to fulfil their duty to this council and to the residents of Derbyshire as they have been doing as consummate professionals, but that it's really important that we keep all the staff on board, that this doesn't become a managerial business mode completely, in that as staff, our employees have to be a team working together, and that we need to make sure that they are supported to do that at what will be a very difficult time, regardless of who is in the leadership role. So I would call upon the leading group to make sure that not just the new chief executive, but that all the officers and all the staff who support them in that role are listened to, their experience and expertise is taken good account of, and that we work together to move this council forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Major, please.
Thank you, Chairman. To start with, I'd like to welcome Neil to Derbyshire and part of the organisation, and congratulate Chris on being made interim. From outside, I do think there is concerns to be made about what declarations of interest were declared and when, and I think now might be a good time that people was clear about that. Aside from that, I want to echo what Councillor George said around culture within the organisation. I do fear that we are losing valued officers at a rate that's not sustainable, and that there seems to be a culture that's developing that's not conducive to working together. And I hope that the administration reflects on that culture, because it's them that lead the culture. And if we get to a situation where officers and the administration are completely loggerheads, it's only going to be bad for the residents of Derbyshire. So I hope they get their act together.
Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to address Councillor Kinsella's point. I know that there are countless studies on this in reports, and I do agree where it's been done poorly in regards to performance and related pay, it hasn't actually achieved the benefits of that. Now, this has been the first time we've actually looked at performance-related pay within this council. The policy written by officers, and it is being worked through formally into what that is. The goals and the settings and the KPIs of what will be measured for are actually going to be worked out once Neil comes in and determine this is the targets that are going to be hit, and it will be monitored. Why performance-related pay? As a county council, we cannot afford to do a pay scale review and pay large sums across the money. The situation of this council is we have a high staff number compared to other councils, and historically we've paid at the lower end of that. Now, what do we want to do? We want to transform this council. There is already, as you know, a program of works underway to get the benefit of efficiency from this council that we need to have. So to do that, we need to ensure that happens. And performance-related pay ensures that we keep things on track and put targets within that. So rest assured, you can look at it, scrutiny committee and everything else, but that will be underway. And to our other colleagues over there who were involved, and I know I'll echo Alex Dale's statements. I was on the panel, and I would like to say that the best candidate for the job was appointed. And Chris is also a really good candidate for the interim head of paid service. However, I don't know where all of this is coming from. If it's been reported, we'll let that run its process. I honestly feel that we are very lucky to have Neil. I think he is going to be a fantastic CEO for the council, and we have good officers supporting him that will make sure that the job is done essentially well. So for some of the other comments, I've also heard that there's been things said about who people perceived the new CEO is going to be prior to a decision being made. And I'm not sure how that information has become public. And without proof, I won't say names of people, but I'm constantly getting messages that members in this place are hearing things from others. And I have raised where that information has come from, and because it is a closed panel. So there are other things that I'm concerned about, probably on different lines to Alex Dale over there, about how some of those things have happened. But the end result is we have a fantastic new chief executive for council who is going to help us lead this council into LGR and transform it to be what we need to be. And it's the right decision.
Thank you. Councillor Fordham, please.
I wasn't on the panel, Chair, but hearing what has just been said and hearing Councillor Reid's response to it, I'm not sure he dealt with the issue. There are concerns from members of the panel that declarations of interest were not done as thoroughly or as properly. That does not cast any aspersion on the brilliance of the candidate, or not. It's something quite separate. And as we approach LGR, and the staff allocations that will fall within that, this is critical to how we set up those new authority. And if there are concerns from members of the panel, they should be treated equally. And I hope, Councillor Reid, you might have those private conversations with those individuals that flushes out and make sure that those concerns don't stand in the future. If we replicate this, those of us who are a little long in the tooth, remember Children's Services with its acting head of its acting head of its acting head of its acting head. I think we had 4 acting heads at one point, 3 of whom were off sick. It becomes cultural. And once you're in that spiral, it's really hard. And the portfolio holder has to swim against the tide. I urge him to celebrate the appointment, but take on board those concerns.
Thank you. Councillor Rini, you reserve the right to speak. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep the comments brief. I was also on the panel and I didn't see any problems. We at one point were all obliged to state that we knew Simon Stevens as the existing CEO, for example. So we did make declarations. I'm not sure quite what the concerns would be that would get an entire group to abstain. That's quite concerning that the whole group feel they need to abstain. For me, as part of the process, we all felt that we'd selected the best candidate that we could on the day. We look forward to welcoming our new chief executive, and we're thankful that we've got Chris in between. So I thought it was a fair process, and I'm completely unaware of these concerns. Welcome our new chief executive, and look forward to Derbyshire moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Graves, to close, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just take up some of the points that have been raised here in the chamber. Councillor Kinsella talked about performance pay, and Ruth George, Councillor George, used the word brave. I actually think it is brave. I think it's a very brave decision. I think it's the decision that my group would take, because we're here, we're all braves, aren't we? Yeah. It's brave in the fact that it's a 2-year appointment. That's how brave we are, all right? We're not talking about long-term for forever or until that person wants to move on. It's a 2-year fixed term. That's how brave that I'm being. It is a risk, and I accept the fact it's a risk, but I think it's a good risk. I think it's a permanent risk. I think it's going to be good for Derbyshire, and I think actually this authority will change to the point where people will notice, because nobody noticed over the many years before. I was interested by, the only thing I didn't like, Councillor Kinsella, was using the word like fag packet. As Councillor Reid had pointed out, officers of this council have written those policies. What we do is advise them what we want in it. And you call our officers that they're writing things on the back of fag packets. I think that's completely unfair of you. Absolutely. And just to make a political point, Councillor George also mentioned about support for people of the council. I can tell you, Councillor George, that members of this, officers of this council are being supported in every way possible that we can. And then we have Councillor Major, who talked about losing valuable officers. We've had one officer leave, Emma Alexander. She left. I mean, she went for greener grass in Tameside. And I just think that, they're not, well, I don't know. Are you telling me that there are other people that have left because of the fact that we're here? People in senior positions on this council do look for other jobs. They look for higher pay, etc., etc. And then there was the mention of concerns of the panel. Mr. Chairman, all I can tell you is that those concerns have been heard. In fact, Councillor Dale mentioned the fact that he had raised his concerns. They are being dealt with, as you probably know. And what we have to do is allow the council to go through that procedure, and they will allay your concerns. So I move these recommendations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can we move to the vote on the appointment of the Chief Executive and the Interim Head of Paid Service, please? Carried. The motion is carried. It's been approved. Could I ask if somebody able to ask Chris Henning to come back in, please? So, thank you. Item 10, changes to committee memberships, and was circulated a late supplement to the agenda. Councillor Abbott, could you move the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move the recommendations as set out in the report so that the vacant places on committees can be filled and politically balanced can be achieved following recent changes to the council's membership. And I would be grateful if Councillor Dale could indicate the nominations for the Conservative group prior to the vote. Thank you.
Yes, could we have those nominations then, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second the report as well. And from the outset, obviously, we'd like to wish Councillor Farron, welcome to the council. Congratulations on the election victory. It's obviously not the result I was hoping for. 22 votes difference. I was hoping to have Councillor Pitt on our side, but unfortunately, it wasn't 23. Close enough. But yeah, congratulations genuinely, and a hard-fought campaign. The changes I'd like to make, I think we're losing one on Pensions Committee, so I'd like to take Councillor Hobson off Pensions Committee and move her on to People Committee into the vacant space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for seconding the report. Are there any other questions, contributions? No. Yeah, we can move to the vote now, please. And that's approved. So item 11 is, sorry.
Councillor McGuinness is still showing as Conservative.
I object.
Nothing can be done right now, but we will, yes, adjust that accordingly. Thank you. Thank you. Well observed, Councillor Wood. Thank you. Where was it? Item 11, please. To approve new contract standing orders. Councillor Whitbread to move the report, please.
Not coming up. Hello. Right, okay.
Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon, Chairman. You'll be pleased to learn, Mr Chairman, that I shan't be attempting to read all 43 articles within this document tonight. I'm going to be as quick as I can to get through this. We've got important stuff to be doing this afternoon, and I hope we get through everything today before bedtime. But I will take this opportunity to highlight the hard work, forward-thinking and contagious positive attitude of the officer responsible for putting this together. It's an exemplary piece of work. It'll be brilliant for this council in its governance and its contract acquisitions, and I'm very proud to have been a part of putting this forward for you today. Excellent work must be recognised and appreciated if we are to push for a brighter future for this county. The revision we shall be voting on today is driven by a philosophy of transparency, cooperation, efficiency and common sense. Approving of these changes will embed a consistent approach across the whole organisation, support accountability and help the council deliver quality services efficiently and responsibly. I hope that members here across the floor will show their support and approve this latest reform. I'd like to move the recommendations over it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Rini. And I have a comment or question from Councillor Major, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was a bit disappointed when I read the report that I wasn't going to see part of it saying that every single penny the council spends will be published and go through in a fine-tooth comb. We are still yet to see what Doge is going to do, despite the many promises made during the election campaign. I understand we made announcements about saving millions, and then when FOIs come in, it finds out that actually nothing of the sort. So, very interesting. Hope that they do start delivering on some of the promises they made, but I'm starting to doubt it.
Thank you. With no one else requesting to speak, Councillor Whitbread, do you wish to respond, or shall we move to the vote?
I'm aware that I've been sold as a carrot to Mr Ingham, who is still present here today, I think. If he would like to be in touch and hear a little bit more about how this affects governance, I would be happy to continue this conversation with him. I don't want to leave him flat without having anything more. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we move to the vote, please? And that's approved. Moving on to item 12, some further changes to the Constitution to update council procedure rules in relation to the chairman role. Councillor Whitbread to move the report, please.
Thanks again, Chair. Again, I'll be brief. We previously approved these alterations in our last ordinary meeting, and I hope that council will approve of the crossing of the T's and dotting of the I's with a swift and unspoiled enthusiasm tonight. It must be noted before I move the recommendation that there is in fact a typo in the report. It cites clause 19.3 where it ought to cite 24.3. The content is otherwise correct, and as such, I move the recommendations as written. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to call for a seconder, but can this wait till the seconder? Yep. Councillor Rini, thank you for seconding, and I've got a comment from Councillor Fordham, please.
Thank you, Chair. As the local government reform percolates its way through Westminster, one of the things that districts and boroughs have done well for decades now is the role of the mayor or chairman. You and I know we had a dialogue regarding an event in Chesterfield. I was left feeling that the chairman and deputy chairman didn't have the support they might have had in executing their role as what effectively becomes the mayor in future. And I just think the report clarifies the Constitution. I think at some point there needs to be some thought applied to what are the resource implications of having the chairman and deputy chairman as the chain out there in the public eye as the first citizen. What are we replacing from the boroughs and districts? And whether or not we're meeting that gap. I think the role of mayors in boroughs and districts has been quite significant, certainly in the charity sector, certainly in the third sector, certainly in volunteer groups. I wouldn't want us to miss that opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Whitbread, shall we move to the vote? Yep, thank you. Can we move to the vote now, please? And that's approved. Item 13, Finance and Performance Monitoring Report for Quarter 2. Councillor Lawson to move the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Seems a little bit like deja vu, to be honest, this, so I apologise. The report is really outlines the performance monitoring and budget monitoring based on the first 6 months of the financial year up to the 30th of September. But it's a projection, as always, for the full fiscal year to the end of March. And basically, the reason why I say it's deja vu is because the vast majority of the numbers contained within it are very, very similar to the previous quarter report. So basically, the projection is, at the moment, we are looking at a small overspend of 1.4 million. But within that, there are some factors to consider. Children's services are still looking at a significant overspend of 26.1 million. Adult social care is also projected to have a small overspend of just under 5 million, and those are offset by quite a considerable underspend in corporate of 26.5 million. So that all nets down to a result of a small overspend at the moment, or projected overspend to be 1.4 million. You may remember the projection last quarter was 1.3, so a very, very slight deterioration. In terms of the report also includes a report on the savings that we've got targeted for the year, and we're forecasting again, as before, 35 million to be delivered against the target, which is around about 93% of the target. The report also recommends extending the use of capital receipts to fund transformation, and also further investment in SEND, and also there's a request for an approval of a budget environment. Again, the report contains a summary of the progress of the strategic objectives and details of the associated measures that are included in the performance section of the report, with a brief narrative of those specific issues. So I therefore move that Council recommends accepts the recommendations as laid out in section 9 of the report.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Rini. Any contributions? Councillor Major.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to, if I can, focus on just one particular budget line in the report, which is that of highways and road maintenance. I know the leader of the council has declared that there's no potholes in Derbyshire anymore, and anybody that says otherwise, it's fake news.
Thank you, Councillor Major.
What concerns me, Chairman, is the fact that just on the drive up here, and I'm sure most residents of Derbyshire and pretty much every elected member whose inbox gets filled up with people complaining about the state of the roads and pavements, I am very concerned to see that the department and the administration is struggling to spend the budget it has. A £1 million underspending highways budget is very concerning when we do face the state of the roads we face. There has been some improvements in road surfaces, mainly down to the fact that we managed to double the budget from our negotiations we had with central government and the elected mayor, which has allowed doubling thing, but we need to be spending the money that we have on highways, not pocketing the money and using it for other things. Our roads are important, our residents care about them, and I'm really disappointed to see £1 million underspending that department.
Councillor Hadgett.
Struggle with enough space here. So I appreciate how difficult this job is of trying to manage the situation, the financial situation where we are. So I would actually like to thank everybody across the council who's working really hard to, you know, to sort this out. The point I want to make is about the vacancies that we are that the council officers are carrying. So we can see that in several departments it's vacancies that is contributing to the underspend. And we can see that in corporate services and transformation, library service, home-based re-enablement, health and communities. We also have seen that SEND has been understaffed and is now needing a £1.3 million bailout effectively to recruit staff to address the issues that they're facing. And we can see that sort of the opposite side of that is that children's social work is overspent by nearly 800,000 trying to fulfil their duties. So it seems that there's a whole load of things in this report all to do with staffing and vacancies. So the point I'm wanting to make is that the council needs to manage its staff well. So because having these staff vacancies could easily be storing up problems for the future, and we might be facing similar problems to SEND at some point because things have gone wrong because we don't have the capacity in terms of staff to deal with them. Or alternatively, we start to spend more money on agency staff to deal with it. And so all I want to say really is that I do hope that the council will consider that. We want to avoid emergency bailouts. We want to avoid wasting money on agencies. And we also want to avoid burning out the staff that are working so hard by putting too much pressure on them. Thank you.
So there's lots of vacancies, but we was told that nobody's left the organisation.
I don't believe that's a point of order. That's debate. Councillor Hill, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I will just respond to Councillor Major, despite it being a question not really about the budget. I think he's really gone off topic. But Councillor Hatchett did sort of touch on the answer to this question. She pointed out the stress on the corporate services through children's services, through special education needs and through adult services. But I'll let my colleagues in that area comment on that later. In terms of highways, we have filled in 28,000 potholes, 17,000 of which were left by the previous Conservative administration that were burning out the highways maintenance staff that could not get around to maintain the roads efficiently and quickly, and they couldn't do their job properly. So that backlog has now gone. We have 2,000 potholes outstanding. Councillor Major clearly doesn't follow me on Facebook, otherwise he'd know that. We did. Well, you obviously follow Alan because you obviously follow Alan to think you know what he's saying. Well, anyway, we have also reduced the highways claims down by over £1 million, which is 72% of claims have reduced in 6 months because of the state of the roads that the Conservatives left Derbyshire in previously. And in terms of funding for highways in Derbyshire, we have increased by contract savings, which I'm sure Councillor Dale will touch on later. They've obviously been in a pub discussing highways and our success all together as a group. But we have brought in a new member-led scheme that every single member of this chamber was allowed to contribute into. I'm sorry, can the Conservatives please be quiet? They are so rude. They don't realise that that's why they are the minority group now, because that is how they react. Thank you. So the Conservatives and the rest of this chamber were allowed to contribute to a member-led residential road resurfacing scheme where they were given the opportunity to put forward 2 roads. This is something that the council has never done before in Derbyshire, and we're investing an additional £3 million from this year's budget that we have managed to save into members' roads across Derbyshire, something the Conservatives couldn't do because they were overspending on their budget. So thank you.
Directly to Councillor Major that I'm sure that if Jesus Christ was born today in a manger in Derbyshire under a Reform administration, he would find a way to claim credit for the previous administration that they actually run.
Councillor Rini.
Hello, everybody. My constituency of Shirebrook and Plesley I just wanted to say a big thank you to Highways, because my roads are perfect.
Councillor Dale.
I can't resist the opportunity to dive into this debate. Councillor Hill referenced 28,000 potholes. I'm sorry, but her figures on potholes just aren't trustworthy. The first meeting she came into this council, she tried to claim she inherited 66,000 potholes, which was totally debunked by the media. So it's just complete, it's just not believable. It's not trustworthy. We know also that the Reform administration are fixing the potholes at half the rate of the previous Conservative administration. And they pledged that they would get rid of temporary repairs. That's not happened. We're seeing bodge job after bodge job all over the place. They're extremely good at giving themselves a good pat on the back. And apparently we should, so much so that we should all be following Councillor Hill on Facebook for the opportunity. She references contract savings. Later on in the agenda, there's something in there that makes very clear the contract savings were delivered because of the efforts that the Conservative administration went to. Now, it's all very good trashing the previous Conservative administration's record, but if in the very next breath you're going to quietly claim credit for the stuff that we did, like the fact you've got to double the size of the capital pot, then I think really should be a bit more honest with the public. And the residential road scheme, that is not the first time we've ever done that. We do it every single year. We ask members to feed into what roads should feature in the capital programme. It's the only slight difference is it's residential roads only. It doesn't make any sense.
And you're limited to 2.
Thank you, Chair.
It only has to be a point of order, I'm afraid. Yes. A point of order.
Yes, I would like to clarify in response to Councillor Dale's comments. I don't think that we can sit in this chamber today and say that the media is trustworthy. I think the BBC might have a lawsuit on their hands to state that. But in terms of the 66,000 potholes, they were the 66,000 reports that this council had received. They were that figure was given out from this council under a Conservative administration in a Freedom of Information request. And can I just point out that Councillor Dale has proven himself wrong in that sentence that he just said. Every single year we feed in to the capital programme, and every single year every single councillor is allowed to feed into the capital programme, and that is correct. We will be doing that again, and if you've read your monthly Highways members update, then you will have already seen that message has already gone out. Nick, I need to finish this point. This £3 million member-led scheme, this £3 million member-led
I'm going to allow you to argue it on social media.
Member-led scheme is additional to the capital programme. You have the opportunity to do both.
Councillor Grace, please.
That was a very, very long point of order. and does Jack know what he's in for? Right, I just wanted to make a few points. I was trying to make this a very short meeting so that we could actually get on with the things that the Conservatives and the other parties are all concerned about. I think the potholes, Councillor Major, have been answered by Councillor Hill very well. So, although I did notice that you wrote down very quickly when Councillor Reaney spoke, because you're going to go round to her division, aren't you? And going to go check every road. I did appreciate Councillor Hatchett's comments. I thought they were very useful, and I'm glad that you pointed out that actually we are trying to address the issues of SEND. You know, we are putting some extra money into there so that we can try and help that process along. But I have to say that SEND is getting better, but it's not perfect, and it's a long way not perfect. We recognise that, but we're working very hard. The officers are working very hard, and so I thank them for that. But when Alex Dale stands up, you have to say he keeps taking credit for everything that we do. Absolutely everything we do. And yet, I heard in the Alderman meeting that they had 2 periods of office where they had 2 together, and they were very proud of that. And you know what they did in that time? They watched SEND go like that. And it went over a cliff, and now we're trying to sort that mess out. How can you talk to us about the budget when you watched that happen? And you were actually in charge of SEND. You were actually the person that was doing it. You were going, oh, look, it's going downhill. What shall I do? Nothing. And you just watched it go off the cliff. And that is disgraceful. And you should be ashamed of that. You should not stand up in this chamber and start telling us how we should run the council. Thank you.
A point of order?
It is, and I don't think that's fair at all to speak to any individual member and call them disgraceful. You know, send is a particularly challenging issue. About half the councils in the country are in the same grading as we are. It's a massive, you know, it is a Conservative government that had a well-intentioned policy that has had unintended consequences. But at the end of the day, Chair, I don't think it's acceptable to lay the blame at one individual person. It is a whole system. It's a partnership of the council, health, and everyone else. I just don't think that's an acceptable approach at all.
We're discussing finance. Yeah, please we'll stay on subject. Please keep the debate respectful. And yes, remember, we're all here for the good of Derbyshire. Councillor Smith, please.
Fine.
Yes, so we've got a seconder. Thank you. Yes, we'll move to the vote.
You need to decide whether there's been sufficient debate before we move to the vote.
I think we haven't enough to... Yeah, I'm fed up with it. And that's approved. Item 14, decisions taken as a matter of urgency and key decisions and special urgency. Councillor Graves to move the report, please.
Mr. Chairman, I just move the recommendations as printed.
And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Rini. Are there any contributions to be made? Councillor George, please.
You. And I'm not here to play any tit for tat, but simply to raise just a couple of substantive issues, and that's around the public health grants and the prevention, particularly in that there's an underspend in the Derbyshire discretionary fund of 0.66 million. There's underspend on welfare rights and financial inclusion.
I think you may be on the wrong.
Oh, sorry, am I on the wrong?
We're on decision, item 14.
Oh, right, we've moved on. I do apologise. I thought we were actually going to have a vote.
Councillor Fordham moved to the vote. So,
I will raise those with the portfolio holder.
Yeah. Any contributions on item 14? Councillor Graves, are you happy we move to the vote? We move to the vote, please.
I think is it the other one?
The vote.
I don't know what to.
That's that one, isn't it?
Is it that one?
Oh, no. Oh, right. I've not been voting. It's that, isn't it? I keep pressing that. I've not voted the whole meeting. Oh, dear. Me and technology. You've all heard that, haven't you? Right, we're now at item 15, but as I indicated earlier, we would like to make a permanent change to the agenda to have...
So it can't be permanent.
Got it.
Only today, yeah.
All right. For today only, we would like to move motions in front of questions. If that's the case, I don't think we need to take a vote. I'm going to exercise my right to do that. So we'll move straight to motions. And first motion is motion 1 from Councillor Major, please. Sorry, motion 2 from Councillor Major.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope this is something we all agree with. Everybody knows I'm a great sceptic of LGR and local government reorganisation. We had a healthy debate on it at the last meeting. The leaders described it as once in a lifetime opportunity and says how much money it will save. I do have some concerns around that. And it comes back to we are going to end up with potentially one of two options, either an old single unitary Derbyshire or a north-south of some description, not quite sure where the line will be. But the important thing is that if it does happen, we need it to work for the residents of Derbyshire. And I don't like it, but it's important that it will work. And I think one of the ways that we can show it can work is to reassure residents of Derbyshire that their bin collections will be safe, their council tax won't go up, and other services won't be diminished as a result of a stealth way of cutting services or raising taxation. And I think we need to start as an organisation to set our stall out, to reassure people that if LGR is to happen, that is the case. And that's the purpose of the motion that's in front of you today, which is to say that if LGR is going to save the money it's going to save, that we do believe that there should be a minimum level, so we can spell out to residents that what we believe a minimum level of service to be in terms of their bins. Because at the moment you have bin collections from 9 different districts and councils. They all do it slightly differently. We've got smart recycling happen, which isn't so smart, and we need to get to a situation where the councils are working together. It does concern me when I still see councils talking about buying new vehicles for the refuge, but not talking to other councils locally and making sure that whatever refuge vehicle they purchase will match up with the refuge vehicle that the neighbouring authority purchases, therefore being able to work together and not wasting oodles of public money. Because if we can make decisions early and set our stall out early on these things, then there is potential that it will work and won't be as a disaster as what I suspect. So that's what the motion is in front of you today. It's a motion about saying to the residents of Derbyshire what we want to, as Conservatives, say, and I hope others will join us, that we will protect your bin collection during this transition, and I hope others will join us on that, and there'll be more to come.
Do you have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Dale. Contributions. Councillor Fordham, please.
Very conscious, Chair, that I'm quite tired, having been through quite a tricky week. But if you're going to talk about bin collection across Derbyshire, it would make sense, really, to check what the bin collection arrangements are already. This would be a higher standard than Chesterfield is offering. We've already moved to a paid green waste scheme. So setting the minimum standard that would then increase that, it's not a coordinated approach already. I mean, when I was, I feel, Councillor Major, like you're trying to posture on an issue of domestic importance to residents, set a standard that sounds rational, but isn't balanced across the 9 districts, hasn't been checked, hasn't been looked at, or what the cost consequences are. Districts are different, different areas, in streets are different. When I was young, Waldorf and Stadler were on the television a lot. It was only afterwards I realised they were still Muppets. Your contribution has to be more substantive. You can't pick holes in potholes and sit there laughing about it, and you can't bring forward minimum standards that already exceed what is currently being presented. It just doesn't make sense. It's not credible, and I'm afraid I don't see the point. It feels like a game, and I don't think it's good.
Councillor Dale, you reserve the right to speak. Do you wish?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think that's what it's about at all. I think recognising the fact that some authorities are starting to charge for garden waste, and that's deeply unpopular with our communities. We're here to represent our residents, and having garden taxes, which is effectively what a green waste charge is not a good thing. So I think what we ought to be doing is championing the benefits we want to get out of unitarisation, and one of those is having decent bin collections that are uniform around the county. So I think this is a good motion. It's only asking us to set a direction of travel, set an expectation to our district and borough colleagues that they work towards that goal, and I think that's a good thing. That's what our residents would want, so why would we not want to promote that? Thank you, Chair.
Mr Chairman, I broadly accept this motion. I accept what Councillor Dale's just said, and that is the fact that it's about trying to have a consistent approach as we move into the final bits of the LGR, so that there is no disparities and discrepancies amongst them. My only concern about your motion, Councillor Major, by the way, that's the most sensible I've heard you speak, by the way, in this chamber for all the time. So thank you. Well, I just wanted to say well done. And the only thing I would say, but I will be supporting this. The only thing I would say is you put a minimum size of a bin of 240 litres. There are some properties that have smaller bins, just because of the size and sometimes because they're a single person in there. So, you know, we can't be consistent in that with everybody. And then there's also I mean, you put it as a minimum. I just think we need to be careful about what we ask for there. But we will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we move to the vote?
Just Wayne wants to close.
Yeah.
Does he
Do
want
you want to close or can we vote? Go on then.
We've been told that LGR is going to bring benefits, and I think part of those benefits is that we say we're going to do better on things that we aren't already doing. So I'm really pleased people are supportive of this. It really is important that we make this work for residents, because that's what we are here for. It is, we do have a bit of fun and a bit of, but what we are here for is for residents, and telling residents that we're going to protect their bin services through this process, I think is a very important thing to do. And thank you for your support.
Thank you. Can we move to the vote, please? Thank you. That's approved. Sorry, I just want to apologise if anybody's seen that I'm using my phone and trying to sort out some childcare arrangements, but it's all right. Multitasking, I can do it. Motion 3 has been withdrawn. Motion 4 from Councillor Dale, please.
I think I'm on. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry to hear about your childcare arrangements. You'll be expecting us to extend the meeting later then, obviously. No, just in bringing the motion forward, again, I won't speak for very long. You know, this motion was one that we brought forward at the last meeting. We still haven't had a decision on this from the government, and I think it's absolutely disgraceful, to be honest. We've waited well over a year now. There are people moving into housing estates, you know, brand new houses in areas thinking that they were getting a primary school for their children or a secondary school on the way, and they're just not materialising. And I do have a real, you know, strong concern that the government is going to scrap them, and it'd be purely based on ideology. I don't think they like the free school process. They don't like the idea of local determination or the state not running every single education facility in the country. So I do have concerns that they're going to scrap it, but the key problem at the minute is just uncertainty, and it's not helpful for anyone. It's not helpful to ourselves as elected members who've been championing some of these schemes, not helpful to the officers who put a lot of work into the business cases and trying to make the case to have these schemes as well. And I've heard the argument that it's because there was no funding in the budget. I just don't think that's true at all. There was funding. When they were approved, there was funding in the budget. You know, you even had people like Rishi Sunak, while he was Prime Minister, visiting in the Bolsover Sixth Form, or Bolsover School, if you like, to promote the Bolsover Sixth Form. You can hardly say they were going to then renege on that commitment to build that school if they had that position. So I just don't buy the argument that there's no funding. This is about ideology over education. It shouldn't be. It should be about education. So hopefully everyone will be able to support the motion, because we do need to call on the government to get on with this.
Thank you. And Councillor Ford, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm rising to second this motion. I have a school, proposed school in my division down at Newhouse Farm, which at the moment, as it stands, we've just got an empty field where the developer could now, almost at this time now, ready to take that field back for further use. And he could also ask them from the money back that's already held by the District Council, repaid with interest. So it's a crucial time. I've engaged with a cabinet member who hopefully will pull out every sinew in his body to try and understand where we are with this. And it's not his problem, sadly. It's a Labour government problem. We know how they look at free schools. We know how they look at independent schools. They just don't particularly want everybody to be indoctrinated in their particular way of thinking. We have a secondary school, a large secondary school proposed in Infinity Park. Again, waiting. If we're going to build the housing numbers that we're expected to build in South Derbyshire, we just simply have to give these estates and the residents the schooling for the children that's going to be moving in. It's ridiculous that we're having to ship children from one area to another area by bus inevitably or by private car. Some of these now are far too far for walking or for cycling. So I urge the officers and the leading administration to tackle this with every bone in their body, really, to try and get this thing moving forward, to get commitment from the government, so that we all know in the districts and the boroughs that to have schools in them, that we can move forward and start to get these schools built to reassure residents that we are actually doing what we said we're going to do, and the developers can get on with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And you seconded the motion?
I'm seconding it, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. I welcome the review to make sure that there's a need for every one of these schools, because I certainly would not want to see a repeat of the Nottingham school that was built and then never opened due to lack of pupil numbers. That was an incredible waste. However, I will support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to let you know that, I mean, obviously this was a motion from the previous meeting in September. We do support the motion. And although we could amend it, I'm not going to amend it. The previous Cabinet member, Councillor Bradley, did write to the Secretary of State before the Conservative group did. So we are definitely in support of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Very briefly, coming from Bolsover, where the sixth form went decades ago, where my own children had to travel very lengthy bus journeys, for it to have been agreed by the previous government, and now in the situation where the local Labour member is raising a petition against her own government for not taking this forward, it beggars belief.
Councillor Wheelton.
It's gone again. Hopefully it's back on. Thank you, Chair. This is a really good motion. I think it's a shame we didn't hear it last time, because it is time critical. The New House Farm Development Primary School is it's probably now approached the November critical point, where under the fourth deed of variation, the 371 occupation trigger is reached. This trigger point is where the developers offer to transfer the fully serviced primary school site to the County Council. The transfer must take place within 30 days, then the construction proceeds. However, by the date of the 600th occupation of dwellings, if the council has failed to commence construction, the land returns to the owners. These legally bound timelines cannot be amended. Hence the urgent and critical decisions which have to be made, ideally in November. It is just unacceptable for the Department of Education to let residents and local councils and this council down and not deliver on promised infrastructure for local residents. I would urge all parties to work together, speed, timeliness and a robust response. And if there's any amendments needed to speed it up, because particularly of New House Farm, Infinity Garden also falls in South Derbyshire, I would leave to the leading member. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rini, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can't speak about the other areas, but certainly in Bolsover, the previous MP, the Conservatives, Mark Fletcher, was in great support of the sixth form there. The current Labour MP, Natalie Fleet, is campaigning for it, and my branch in Bolsover is also campaigning for it. Should I be lucky enough to become the next MP, I will certainly push it through. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGuinness.
Yeah, I would just like to speak in support of the motion as well. I agree that it is absolutely ideological warfare from the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. Her tenure has been an absolute disaster. It's all about state control, taking away from academies, free schools, attacking independent schools and aspiration. And there's one thing we've not actually talked about is 1.5 million houses are apparently getting built in this parliament. It's not going to happen, is it? But there'll be a lot of kids in them houses, I'd imagine, and in these areas as well. So, yeah, it's completely short-sighted. And it's actually the reason why people are against housing, because they don't have the schools, they don't have the doctors. So actually, they're just adding to that short-termism of government. And I think they're going to regret it.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I just got one point to make. The
these two housing developments, one in Brimington, what's been built, the other one, the 1,000 homes, which I've got my petition going nice and strong for against. They both have school buildings. The housing estate, what has been built already, doesn't have a new school. So all the residents who have moved into these new houses are putting pressure on the other schools. So I fully agree with this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, do you wish to speak or can we move to the vote?
Yeah, thank you very much everyone for the support. Really great to see. Just in relation to Councillor Wheelton's point, we did ask this question at Cabinet, and I believe the council will secure the site for Newhouse Farm. I believe that's the position, regardless of the outcome of this review. I hope that's correct. I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but because we do need the school, so it's slightly less time critical. But the government still really need to get on with this decision because it's far too long. So, but yeah, thank you, Chair. Happy to move to the vote.
Thank you. Can we move to the vote, please? That's approved. Motion 5 is withdrawn. Motion 6, I understand you withdrawing, Councillor Forden? Buses? Is it withdrawn or you just...
If I can, Chair, I do need to make the point that I think it's a real shame that bus service issues are being withdrawn effectively from public scrutiny by being given to the Mayor, for whom there are no direct accountability methods. And I would just say to the leader, I did put a question. When I get to the end of the sentence, it'll be very clear. I asked the leader whether they would consider having the Mayor as a conversation with elected members, and his answer was no. I will withdraw the motion, but it does take the issue of bus services out of public sight. And I think that's a shame. I think it's problematic. And if you look at the minutes of our meetings, it's occurred, I think, 26 times in the last 2 years.
I'm advised it is subject to scrutiny through EMCA, but thank you for that point. But, moving on to the motions for the 10th of December meeting then. Motion A. Councillor Kinsella, please.
Chair. I'd just like to speak to you about Derbyshire Befriending Service. Probably earlier this year, Derbyshire Befriending Service contacted us all in this room, all members. Myself, Councillor Hatcher and Councillor George responded to that email. And in responding to that email, we found out more about the befriending service and the benefits that service bring. And I just want to set out to you here something about that service and ask you to support the reinstatement of the funding for it. So, Derbyshire Befriending Service is a charitable organisation that aims to reduce loneliness and social isolation among the elderly and vulnerable households. And I think it's a really important point to make that it's within people's own homes that this work is done. Now that's really important, and we'll come on to that in a moment. The befriending service improves health, improves people's well-being, and also improves employability because the service is supported by a raft of volunteers. There are around 40 befriending services across Derbyshire with a volunteer force of around 1,000 people. So massively important both for their employability but also their mental health and well-being too. The volunteers give around 10,000 hours of their own time free each month. The service, so research shows that, and this is supported by Derbyshire County Council, research shows that loneliness can increase the risk of mortality, early mortality, and that 60% of people who are lonely experience mental health distress compared to 15% who are not. So we can see that how important reducing loneliness is, particularly how it can deliver value for money for Derbyshire County Council. And in fact, it was a 2018 Derbyshire County Council report called Befriending in Derbyshire that carried out an independent assessment of the value and impact of these services. And they calculated for every pound invested in befriending, there was a return of £9 for the state. So clearly, there is a real benefit to both an economic benefit, but a benefit to those people in their homes. So what's happened since? So in April 2024, the Cabinet agreed to end the discretionary funding grant across all services. So it was a wide, sweeping cut of grants to all voluntary services. Now, that really didn't make sense. I've already explained how value for money is delivered by these services, and the relatively small amount of money that this service gets was just lost. And it was suggested that they could find alternative funding. Well, that just hasn't happened. And it was suggested that these organisations have significant reserves. Well, they haven't. And as a result of that, we see a number of these services have collapsed and no longer exist. So only 6 months ago, or probably a little bit more than that now, actually, but this funding has been withdrawn. So we've seen 2 of the largest service providers have completely closed. We've seen another one significantly reduce its activity, and a further 3 organisations are anticipated to close by the end of this financial year. So a reduction in the client base by around 50%. So when I've discussed this with officers, I've been told, well, basically, we have an alternative. There is a solution here. The befriending service doesn't need to worry about the loss of that funding because we are stepping in. And there is an initiative called the Social Connected Project, coming from Derbyshire's, from the Public Health Service. And the argument is that funding will continue. However, this funding isn't about individual homes, and it isn't new funding either, but it's not about going into people's homes and supporting people in their actual residences. It's about social connection, it's about community connection, it's about community centres and day centres. It's not actually about supporting people who are housebound or who have mental health problems or who may be hoarders or whatever the situation is, are within their own home. So there is no alternative funding for this specific need. So the befriending service, so it delivers on a one-to-one basis. So it has a different client base, mainly the elderly, mainly disabled people, and people with complex needs. So this service aligns with everything that the Derbyshire County Council want to achieve. It also aligns with the NHS report, the Fit for Future, and it recognises that there is a shift from reactionary to preventative work, which is exactly what befriending services does, and the long-term benefits, financial, and for those individuals that will deliver. So I'm asking members to support this motion. The amount of money we're talking about is 106. The amount was cut was 161k. I think my calculations is it's 0.005% of the adult social care budget. The point I'm making is a very, very small amount of money for a massive impact. It delivers value for money, and it delivers help for those people in their homes. So I would ask members to consider supporting the proposals and allow that that then we basically agree for then that to be refer the matter to the Cabinet for further consideration and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move to contributions, have you a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor George, and Councillor Barnes' contribution, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member like on the far left there. Much appreciated. The council does recognise the work that the charity sector and befriending provides. Now, like as I mentioned, the funding was removed by the last administration. But I've been working hard, well, since we've come in, to speak with the charity sectors and rebuild the relationships and trust. Now, we've recently launched a joint, adults and public health prevention strategy, working with partners inside the sectors. With a key focus on the social isolation and loneliness. And we encourage partners to join us in that and get better outcomes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hart, please.
Right, thank you, Mr Chairman. Sorry, I thought it was Councillor George first. Yeah, if we go back to this was my time as a cabinet member, and sometimes you have to make some very, very difficult decisions, and this was one that it was a difficult decision. But we looked at all of the discretionary grants that were going. We started to look at overhaul the whole lot, and we started that before COVID. COVID kicked in and everything was put on hold. And then we started again after COVID. Now, the fact is that we all know that budgets are very, very tight. And, you know, we haven't got, you know, an X amount of money. And these grants, looking at them, a lot of them have been in place for 25, 30 years, even some of them. And the befriending service was a good service, but so were lots of the other organisations. And to pick one organisation and say, well, yes, we will support you, we'll carry on supporting you, you know, that, I'm sorry, it does not work because there were so many deserving ones. I will say that our officers did really, really hard to work with them before COVID and after COVID. There was lots of warnings that, you know, unfortunately, we're going to have to save this money. But we helped them in any way we could to actually find other sources of income. And it's disheartening if they didn't manage to find, but the officers are still willing to work with any of the organisations. And as Councillor Barnes had just said, there are things that can be happening. But the thing is as well, that what you've got to look at is that a lot of the priorities over the years change. So some of those delivering things for 25, 30 years, some of the priorities are slightly changed. Plus the fact COVID, again, we've got the health locality groups that met during COVID with lots of new partners in them. And actually, there was lots of things that they did to try to improve on the loneliness. I have taken this, you know, I know Mr. Councillor Kinsella has raised this before. You know, there are things in place to help with loneliness, even if it's warm spaces, even if it's time swap. There are certain things that we have got in place to help. But certainly, I mean, you know, there is no reason why there may be some finance that may be found, but you can't just pick one out of reams and reams, and we're not talking 2 or 3 organisations, we were talking lots of organisations. So it's very difficult to say, yes, all right, we'll support that one, but we can't support all the rest. So it was a very, very difficult decision. You know, members will have to make over time, make difficult decisions. It's not very nice. It would be lovely just to say, yes, we can carry on funding you, but there were very good reasons, and as I say, with the budget as it was, but I do hope that we are still, in different ways, helping with loneliness as well through but as I say, it's not my responsibility now, but I hope it's still happening. And it is essential because loneliness is something, but it is being addressed in other forms. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Major.
Mr. Chairman, it extends on a little what Councillor Hart said. I'm a chairman of one charity and a trustee on 2 others, and we do good stuff. One of them is supports the elderly in Sandiacre. And none of them receive public money. We operate completely separately from the public. It's really hard, and I find it really difficult because I'm sure these groups do fabulous things. But it's wrong for us to be picking winners out of the charitable sector. The whole concept of a charitable sector is you raise money and you deliver things that people want that can't be done by the public, or prioritised by the public sector. If there was things within the services they deliver that we think was a priority of the council, we should be setting out them as council priorities and then asking people to bid in to deliver those services as a bid for the service. And charities can do that. And then there's strings attached to the money that they've been given. I get concerned when I see that there's charitable groups that get money year after year and then they become so reliant on that money, and that's the only way that they can exist. And that's not sustainable long term. And although it's obviously, as Councillor Hart said, very difficult, it unfortunately was a necessary evil that has to transpire, because otherwise we will be in a situation that once you've picked a winner, you can never change anything, and we can never be in a situation where we can be setting priorities properly as a council that represent what our electors have told us they want to receive and want to prioritise. So I'll just leave you with that thought, Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Somerville.
Just to sort of a few things, I'd like to thank Councillor Kinsella for honestly, I know it was covered previously, scrutiny as well, before the council changed. Just a couple of bits that maybe would help me to have supported this. Is these £1 for £9 numbers, you know, they're made up by people often and they're wild often. The thing that really would help is there another area of adult social care that you would cut in place for this service? Because that would then give us some more kind of, but it just feels like it just, you know, give us £106, please. You know, it's meaningless.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, please.
Thanks, Chair. And I think Councillor Somerville raised a very good point there. And I would absolutely echo what Councillor Hart and Councillor Major have said. I recall this, you know, being involved in some of these voluntary sector groups right back in 2017. And even back then, we were telling those groups they need to find ways to make themselves financially sustainable. We cannot continue to give this funding. No one is denying the befriending service don't do a fantastic job. They do some really, really good work. But the council cannot continue to just fund these organisations on a grant basis when the budget situation is so difficult. And as Councillor Hart said, there were hundreds of these groups that we were funding. Some of them very small amounts. Some, you know, luncheon clubs and Derby and Joan clubs and that sort of thing, right up to very large organisations like this. And the reality is, you know, and I think that just built up over time. You know, we started funding them 20, 30 years ago. And no one had thought, you know, thought to change that through the time. So we had to make some difficult decisions. You know, it's not to diminish the fantastic work that they do, but they are a charity organisation, and part of charity is about raising funding independently of the state. And I think that's what we're asking here. And we're providing the services that we can as a council to deal with isolation, in the hope that they can continue to operate by raising their own funding. But not to diminish the work, and I understand why you brought the motion forward, but I think that's our group's position anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Hatchett, please.
So, I don't know, it seems a funny argument to me to sort of say, well, we can't help everybody, so we're not going to help anybody. Seems a very, a very odd way to look at things. And I absolutely support the idea that things should be reviewed. So I'm in no way advocating that if you get a grant one day, you should continue it for the next 30 years. But I think this particular charity does such a lot of good, which is absolutely in line with what the council should be doing. It's all very well to say, well, there's the community connection project or whatever it is, and warm spaces and everything else. But that's not about people helping people at home who might not, for whatever reason, transport problems or mental health problems, can't go out. It seems such a small thing, doesn't it? Just to ring somebody up once a week or whatever it is and just have a chat. Doesn't seem to be a lot to ask. It is a valuable service. It doesn't really cost very much in the scheme of things. I mean, again, I know money is tight, but it really isn't a vast amount of money. One of the things that came out when we were talking to the people from the befriending service is the fact that after the money was cut and after some of these organisations had to close, they continued to receive referrals from Derbyshire County Council workers. So that seemed to me like this is obviously a good public voluntary sector partnership, which we should be supporting. Listening to the points made by Councillor Hart and Councillor Majors, the phrase that came to mind was the big society, going back to David Cameron, who talked a lot about, you know, this is the way we should go. Voluntary sector organisations should be stepping in to do this sort of work. Absolutely, they should do their own fundraising. But sometimes they also need a bit of a hand. And I think this is a very small hand that we could offer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Really must apologise. It was when the word trustee was just mentioned that I have now realise that I am a trustee of a charity that may have received a very small amount of money from this grant. It's a bit late for me to leave now, but I hope it'll suffice if I do not vote.
I'm sure that'll be fine, thank you. Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by saying Councillor Barnes hasn't probably trumpeted his own horn enough on this, and I know he's been working really tirelessly with all the charity sectors and partners that we actually have in trying to give support. I sympathise a lot with some of the comments that have been made from the Conservatives. And I would like to restate there is a lot of good work that has been done by the organisation that has been mentioned in this motion. The reality is we can't, as a county council, fund every organisation. And we have a direct trade-off of, if we were to do this, we would have to cut frontline services elsewhere and cut them. Now, my understanding of this whole situation, again, as Councillor Dale has said, is notice was given that the funding would cease in 2017 and that this would be the way this is going. So there were 7 years there, and I know there's been a lot of practical support given by many cabinet members in trying to get business cases together, look at other streams of funding to make them viable. And yes, to your point, my apologies, I can't see your name tag, I'm horrible with names. But to your point about the good work and council referring to these organisations, we refer to many charities that we don't fund because they do good work. And we recognise the good work and the value they bring to our community. However, the simple fact comes back to we can't fund all of these organisations, and the support we give them is not always financial. And the scheme was cut, in my understanding, for many good reasons, because we can't afford to provide that funding to community organisations anymore. So we will continue to support them in other ways, but I, for one, will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Barnes, you've already spoken. A point of order, please, at all?
See, I'm learning. So, the point of order with Councillor Hatchett. So, like having spoken with a couple of these the charities out there, we have like offered the help there, but not the financially, more with their management and like how they actually operate. Now, with the befriending the service, when they're getting their grants out for all the charities and doing all the grant work, they charge just £1. And that's the figures they gave us. I'm not both saying they make a profit, but at least look at the management, the structure that these organisations have. It needs a lot of work out there.
I've allowed these points of orders to be stretched beyond breaking point. And it's not for, it's for personal clarification or a breach of a standing order. Don't ask me what number it is. If we can all bear that in mind in future, please. So, Councillor George, please.
Thank you very much. And I'm seconding this motion. I declare an indirect interest in that I work in adult social care. I visit people in their own homes to care for them, and I see the impact that loneliness has on people. It is well documented. This is not about spending money. This is about this council saving money. Look at the proportion of our budget that we're spending on adult social care. Look at the almost £10 million overspend projected this year on domiciliary home care, on residential care. People who are lonely are 26, increases the risk of early mortality by 26%. Loneliness increases the risk of dementia exponentially. This is why we need to look at the amount that was spent on the befriending service, £161,000. Look at the amount being spent on adult social care. What is it, £390 million this year by this county council. That tiny portion of spending on the befriending service is what's helping to keep some people out of needing vastly more expensive care services. And it's also, there's lots of well-being support as well, but it's about their health, it's about their care needs, it's about spending a tiny amount to save millions. It's about doing the right thing, not just by various charities that are out there. This is our voluntary and community sector. These are organisations that are embedded in our communities, that are accountable to this council every single day. They write their bids, they make their case, they do this year after year. Yes, some of these grants may have been, for befriending, may have been going on for 25 years. Good. You need a sustainable service. You need, once you've got volunteers in who are prepared to do that, who are prepared to reach out to people who are lonely and isolated, you can't just end that contract one day, tell them that they're no longer needed and expect them to come back the next financial year. They need sustainability. I'm afraid that's what the previous administration failed to understand in these costs. They might have saved a few pennies, but they cost, you look at the cost of adult social care over that administration, it went up and up and up. Yes, COVID had an impact on loneliness, absolutely. It's made it even harder to get things like the befriending service back up and running again, to get volunteers to be able to reach out and find those people who are lonely and isolated before it's too late, before their dementia, before their general health has deteriorated to a point where they need health and social care. So please, this motion is not about breaking the bank. This motion is about spending a small amount in order to save millions and in order to support our voluntary and community sector in general that do so much in every area of the county, and about supporting those people out there who have nobody else. And I hope it doesn't happen to any of our families, but there's many, many people out there, unfortunately, who it does happen to, and who are the ones that I feel that I am somebody who came into this role to support, and I hope that's common to all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fordham, please.
Very briefly, Chair. If you die in Chesterfield, and I assume this is true across the county, with no next of kin, the borough undertakes to conduct a funeral service for you. There were 54 in 5 years in Chesterfield. Usually they're attended by a nurse or two from a care home or from an institution that housed that person. And I undertook as a councillor that I didn't think they should go alone. So I attend the funerals where I can. There is a celebrant and they lead it through music and stories so that the person's life is told. We spend about £6,000 on those people who die alone, each. Now, I remember, and I fear this is going to be my role, the reason these cuts were made on these voluntary sector groups wasn't some strategic decision. It was a £45 million quarterly overspend crisis. And you brought forward all the cuts to go from, I think it was 3.2 million to naught, having made the decision behind closed doors. There was no strategic which institution is more valuable to us, which partnership relationship is important. You just scrapped them in the £45 million panic. So you can't make out that we're then cherry picking services. What I think this is doing is it's saying this is an important service in the reconstruction of our relationship with the voluntary sector. This council is saying the befriending service matters. I absolutely hear what Councillor Barnes is saying, and I credit him for taking a significant interest in this. And I think I take the warmth of his words today on this topic. I think they matter. But for the Tories to make out there was some strategic decision, nonsense. It was swept away without any public scrutiny in a paper to full council in the £45 million panic that you caused. It's now time to rebuild our relationship and our funding for the voluntary sector.
Thank you. Councillor Kinsella, do you wish to close or move to the close? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think most people in Derbyshire listening to this debate would be shocked, I think, about the lack of compassion, I think, that's been shown. I mean, I want to make the point that re-emphasise the points that Councillor Thorne's made. This wasn't a well thought out strategic decision where each organisation in the voluntary sector was contacted and they looked at their value for money, they looked at their effectiveness, a consideration was made about their reserves. This was just a massive cut across the voluntary sector because of a massive black hole the Tories had created in the last administration. And the point about, you know, we can't support one service because there are lots of other services out there, that's a perverse argument. Yes, you can support one service. There are lots of other services out there that haven't survived. And we were given assurances by the Conservatives, well, these organisations have reserves. These organisations can raise money through the lottery funding. These organisations are too expensive anyway. None of that has proved to be true. We've seen what the impact is upon this service with the loss of 2 major providers, and we've seen what the impact is upon those other charity organisations. It is trickle-down economics, isn't it? It is trickle-down economics where basically we can't provide for the most vulnerable in our society, and the only way we can is if the very rich kind of basically can provide some money, cascade down that money. That isn't happening, and that never has happened. It's a failed experiment. Councillor Somerville, thank you for your question, and I think that's a good point. And I think that's why I've said in the report, you know, that this needs to be referred to the Cabinet. I have put forward some suggestions, but of course it will be a Cabinet decision. And we are talking about, you know, and you're quite right, money has to come from somewhere. I know money doesn't grow on trees. I know it has to be found. And I know the Council has challenges around the finances. I'm not sure that the money is always spent wisely, but it certainly has got challenges. And some of that is to do with national politics. But we're talking about 0.05% of the adult social care budget. Surely some money can be found from that budget. And the other point I would make is, we are talking about value for money here. We're talking about, and this was an independent report. This isn't me just making it up or that sector making it up. An independent report commissioned by Derbyshire County Council, admittedly in 2018, but the arguments are even stronger now, that showed £1 invested brought a £9 return. So we are being really short-sighted by not engaging our voluntary sector, by not engaging with the volunteers and the benefit that brings to those volunteers. We are being extremely short-sighted and the cost that it gives to adult social care. So it is a really short-sighted argument. And I suppose I would just, I would just conclude by saying, you know, Councillor George has spoken eloquently about her experience as a practitioner within these services. And we've seen how it has an impact upon people in their homes. And that's why I emphasise, because yes, we understand there is some sort of initiative that hasn't been rolled out that is looking to support community cohesion. This isn't about that. That money won't impact and affect these people. This is about elderly people, this is about vulnerable people, and it's about a simple service, about connecting those people to the wider society. And it just strikes me as mean, given the small amount of money, given the value for money that this can deliver, that so many people have spoken against this. But I urge members to support this motion for the benefit of those individuals, and given that it delivers value for money and it will cost the council so little. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we move to the vote, please?
I think I lost that one.
And the vote is against the motion. Can I ask that Councillor Gourlay and Councillor Smith are asked to return, please? Moving on to motion B from Councillor Bromley, please.
Thank you, Chair. As we all probably know, National Grid proposes to run a line of pylons, or should I say super pylons, from Chesterfield in the north to Willington in the south of our county. Along the way, decimating our beautiful countryside and threatening to destroy our communities. We are not up against upgrading of the power infrastructure. We just want it to do in a better way, underground. National Grid are refusing to go underground due to the simple fact of a fictitious cost of 10 times the pylons. The amended agendaed motion picks holes in this theory and gives evidence of worked examples of a maximum of 1.5 to 2.5 times the cost to go underground. Before I move on, let's remind ourselves that National Grid isn't in the name a nationally owned company. It is a majority American-owned private company making circa £4 billion worth of profit annually, and will increase those profits at the expense of Derbyshire residents if this proposal goes ahead. To put a bit of context into the enormous scale and impact these super pylons, which I'll call them, will have, please consider this. Many of you may have driven past the Angel of the North in the northeast. Now picture 3 Angel of the Norths stacked on top of each other. That is 60 metres high, the same as a super. Crooked spire, and how prominent the spire is on the skyline of Chesterfield and the surrounding areas. The spire is 69 metres tall, the same again as a super pylon. Now imagine a Chesterfield spire-sized pylon every 300 metres cutting through the entirety of Derbyshire to the south in Willington. We already are having our greenfield sites designated as grey belt. We already have the threat of major solar installations covering our greenfields. We're already being bombarded with the threat of battery storage installations industrialising our greenfields. Now we are facing the threat of super pylons tearing through the heart of our countryside. Derbyshire, and especially our countryside, are under attack by our very own government. Now the Derbyshire public's enemy number one. It is our duty as councillors to lead the fight back and to protect the Derbyshire we know and love. So I'll propose the motion as agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor. Thank you both. I'll take that, Councillor Reaney. Thank you. Councillor George, please.
Thank you, and I'm not looking to make any great speech about this. I agree there are lots of concerns about pylons. What does concern me particularly, and I wondered if I could ask the monitoring officer if there's been any advice given to those of us who are on local planning committees, whether on Derbyshire's own planning committee or on district councils, who may be asked to advise on particular projects, whether voting on this motion would predetermine those of us who are on those planning committees. I just want to make sure that we're all very careful before we do anything that may impact our own ability to influence this very important matter.
Yeah. There's been no requests made from the monitoring officer. Ideally, it should have been before this meeting, but maybe if you want to come forward after for advice with your borough council. Thank you. And anybody else in the position. Councillor Major, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The monstrosity, as it's described, goes through my division as well, and I share all your concerns. And it's a great piece of countryside that's a very valuable buffer between the cities of Derby and Nottingham, that's enjoyed by residents and visitors who come for walks. And you're right, these are not normal pylons, these are ginormous individual things. I do, however, don't like the idea of just playing beggar thy neighbour and saying, let's just go for it, just put it through somebody else's division. What I do completely support is the concept of putting it underground. And I know the proposal of the motion spoke at length about it going underground, and I think that needs to be better reflected within the motion itself. So I'm going to propose an amendment, which is on point 2, which calls on National Grid to recommend the route and explore less intrusive alternatives to be specifically be and promote the cable going underground.
Thank you. Councillor Bent, please.
Well, for
Sorry. Yeah.
So we need to have a second.
Sorry, Councillor Hart seconded the amendment. Yeah. Thank you.
So we are now debating the amendment to add those words.
So we're going to debate the amendment, which the words were, I got as far as promote.
The cable going.
The cable going underground. Yeah.
So we're just debating that amendment.
So with that in mind, do you want to change the speaker? Who wishes to speak? Councillor Hart, please. We're debating the amendment to promote to move it underground. Yeah, Councillor Hart.
So if Martin is happy to accept it and his seconder, who's Rob, is happy to accept it and council supervisor accept it.
First. Okay, I understand, Councillor Major, why you may have put this forward, and it is something that is worth considering. My problem is it's too restrictive. If you restrict the motion, because that second point is about allowing National Grid to decide how to address the concerns of the people of Derbyshire. If you tell them they've got to put it underground, then there'll be a particular reason why they can't put it underground. I think that's the best solution. I agree with you. However, what I don't want to do is restrict this motion in its whole sense. We want National Grid to say, well, actually, we hear you. We want to put it underground. But they might say, well, we'll put it in a different route, but it's less difficult for our countryside. But ultimately, we do want them to put it underground. But I think I'm going to reject this amendment on the basis that it restricts the motion rather than helps the motion.
In the interest of speed, I'm thinking that we could vote on the amendment, but does anybody really want to speak on it? Yeah, you're reserved, right. Shall we move to vote on the amendment, which is item 2, call on National Grid to reconsider the route and explore less intrusive alternatives and promote the cable going underground.
So we're just voting on.
So on that item alone, the amendment, can we have a vote, please? Right. So the amendment is lost. Going back to the motion, and have I still got my list of speakers? Councillor Hart, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I think I'd start by saying that we know National Grid want to upgrade. I don't think that's anything we're arguing against. It's just how they upgrade. I will refer to our earlier public speaking. We had Ms Hardman, I call her Councillor Hardman, or Cass Hardman. She is actually a Morley Parish councillor, and Morley is in my ward. As soon as this came out about the National Grid, I have to say, Catherine, hope she doesn't mind me saying that, but rolled her sleeves up and said, you know, we've got to fight this. And by golly, they really have. The Stop the Pioneers group is absolutely fantastic. She's aided and abetted by the chairman of Morley Parish Council, Duncan McIntyre. I have to say that they've really rallied the people round. And there was one of the first meetings was at Morley Hayes, which is, if anybody knows it, it's a very, very nice hotel, restaurant, golf course and everything else. It's going to massively affect them as well as the beautiful area around Morley and looking at other areas. But because it's in my ward and Morley started these objections and stopped the pylons, they're the ones that I'm really supporting. On that meeting, somebody did, and we've already mentioned about the size of the pylons. I don't think people realise just how big they are, but somebody had done a mock-up of the pylons. They'd done a really good job. But, you know, you see the pylons like that now, and the pylons. They'd even got a drone going over the church steeple and then going up and up and up and up just to try to get and how horrendous they're going to be. I actually took a motion to Erewash Borough Council asking them to support the objections to this. I even suggested that, yeah, we could use other wetters. Why not use the M1 motorway? Why not use the sea? But most the one popular, of course, is underground. Now, whoever you talk to, you know, it depends which one. You know, some will say it's very much expensive. Some will say, naturally, it's not. It's not that much more expensive, I'm sure. And you've got to think about it. It's forever and a day. It's not just sort of for a few months or a few years. So I just think that we need to get that message across. It was turned down at Erewash. They wouldn't support it. And the problem being is that unless you're actually affected in the rural villages, it probably isn't going to impact on you. It's not going to devalue your property. It's not until perhaps you have a drive out, if they were put up, then you'll suddenly say, oh dear, that's awful. So it's trying to get the message, even if it's not affecting you absolutely, whether it's your house or the vision that you can see. You know, we need to get people on side because it will affect everybody. So I think it's how we get that message out. And I would implore people, you know, even if you can't see those pylons if they go up, even if you've not got a house that's going to be devalued, please, you know, support this stop pylons. As I say, the team are working so hard, but they do need the support right across the whole length of the proposals. It's horrendous. So, yeah, all I can say is please support this and get the message out, get the objections in, because it can work. They have put them underground and we've only got to look at HS2. Yeah, it might cost more, but my God, it makes such a difference. And it isn't. The people, as I say, I think some of the workings out and how much they're going to cost, if you talk to National Grid, it's going to know us. You talk to other people who actually have been involved in that sort of thing before, it's not that much more expensive. So we need to encourage them to do that. Sorry you're not supporting that, but that we said underground, but please, that's the way we want to go. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ford, please.
Thank you, Chair. When you're comparing sizes, and I know we've talked about Chesterfield Spire, the cooling towers at Willington are 91 metres tall. And we're talking about some of these pylons in the area being 70 metres tall. So there isn't a great deal of difference between the top of a pylon and the top of a cooling tower, which I suppose eventually will have to come down, which will make the size of these pylons look even more obtrusive across the countryside. Certainly in my part of the world, in Findon and in Willington, as my district area, we're going to be besieged with pylons. We're besieged already with BESS sites coming across, all feeding in to the grid at Willington, which is going to cause massive disruption for years to come. It'll be disrupting farmland, disrupting farmers' production, disrupting the highway. We can do it underground. We can do a mole underground, which will be far less obtrusive. And I know the cost will be what the cost is. I'm sure that'll be talked about in the future. But it really does cause a major problem across my bit of South Derbyshire as it sweeps down and then round and across the Trent and round by the A50. So I'm fully supportive of the amendment, and I fully support any actions we can take to try and get them to reconsider underground. Obviously not in the motion, but I certainly will be supporting this motion just because of the visual impact, the disruption and the destruction of countryside and all the highway networks that we're going to have to face in my bit of South Derbyshire. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm one of those people in the areas that Councillor Hart mentioned that aren't actually affected by this. My division is north of Chesterfield and isn't affected, but I have consistently supported all of the previous motions, both at District Council and the motion we had back here that was brought forward by Conservatives back in March to oppose the pylon. So absolutely will be supporting this motion. The other thing I just wanted to highlight is that the previous administration did begin work around a campaign for a national landscape, which is what the old area of outstanding national beauty are now called, for the Amber Valley area, covering the southern part of North East Derbyshire and most of the Amber Valley area. And I suppose the question would be, is that work continuing? There is a campaign here, there's an opportunity, and that work, if we're successful with it, will create a major problem for the National Grid in trying to run this line right through the heart of our county. So it would be great if someone from the opposition, from the reform benches could highlight what's happening with that campaign.
Intervene here. I think I've seen something in relation to that, and I can't think where it was. Councillor Hatchett, please.
Right. So I will be supporting this motion, and I would like to tell you why. Obviously, it's a national infrastructure project. It's not one that's in the control of any local authorities. It's unfortunate that the National Grid is a privatised company that's driven by profit and the demands of shareholders rather than what is actually right for the country. This is a model that was enacted by the Conservatives and is maintained by Labour, and it's good to hear reform backing calls for the renationalisation of companies which serve the public good. The upgrade is needed, both in Derbyshire and across the country, because we do need to transition to cleaner and cheaper energy. Just excuse me, because I need to roll this down. The problem is that the current grid, constructed to take electricity throughout the country from old-fashioned power stations, is not fit for the future. So we need to do something about that. Of course, it's important to find the best route. I'm sorry about this. The motion speaks about the impact on the Peak Park and the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. But in fact, one of the drivers for the current route, or the proposed route, or corridor at least, is that it's avoiding the Peak Park and the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. So I'm not quite sure what that reference is doing in the motion, but nevertheless, that is the case. And one of the drivers for the corridor that's been proposed is to avoid those landscapes, and means that it does run very closely to some other villages. There is only so much space in this country. It's important to note that all of the options for construction should be considered, including burying the cables underground. I wasn't happy with the proposed amendment because I agree with Councillor Graves that that would have made it too narrow, but I certainly think all of these things should be considered. Undergrounding is not a magic solution. It's not just about the cost. There is a significant impact in terms of the digging of the trenches. You have to think that some people will have this great big trench dug through their land. So things will be destroyed in that process. It's not a cost-free alternative. And there are longer-term issues with underground cables to do with safety and maintenance. So there's a lot to consider here, but it should certainly be considered. I don't want to minimise the impact on people who will be affected by the scheme, whatever options are chosen. It's obviously essential that local councils, and that goes right down to parish councils and town councils, should be involved, and residents need to be heard. So it's really important that those bodies and those people engage with the statutory consultation process that's coming up next year. We should also just remember that the government and the National Grid have said that the residents who are most affected will receive at least some benefit from this. I know they're sort of taking one for the team in terms of the country, but they will get some benefit. And local councils will also, parish councils will also get some benefit from the scheme. So there is some payback. I'm sure it's argued that it won't be enough. So we do need this project. I can't support the bit about the call for the public inquiry because I think that just introduces extra expense and extra delay. I do want to see the best possible route, and I also want to see consideration, exploration and an environmental impact assessment. So I think all of those are really important. We should do it. It calls for, the motion calls for community voices to be heard. I have to refer back to Councillor Reid earlier. That wasn't a good example of how we can listen to the public, I don't think. But on the whole, you know, we do need to listen to what local people are saying and really take that on board, and we should encourage that National Grid to do so. So for me, it's slightly a curate's egg, this motion, but on the whole, I think it's a valuable one and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
To the question to be put.
Point of order that we extend the meeting by an hour to allow the very little amount of business that's left to be completed.
I'll second, Chair, and call for a recorded vote as well, I think, Chair.
So we've got the proposal that is valid
Yeah.
to move to the
To
vote.
vote, so do that first and then come back to the
Decide
time
whether
thing.
it's been-
Yeah, let's finish this. Yeah.
So you've
Yeah.
got so
Yeah.
are you going to allow to speak or move to the
Yeah.
vote and then deal with that?
Yeah. Thank you for the move to the vote. We've had a significant debate, so I'm minded we'll move to the vote now. And I'll come back to that item when we finish this, if that's okay. Oh, do. Can we have... Right, we've got a seconder from Councillor Rees. Can we move to the vote, please? I'm not switched on. We're actually going to vote on the motion, motion B, the protection of Derbyshire's green spaces from pylon development. Move to the vote, please.
So just to be clear, so
We vote whether we have a vote to vote. Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy there's been debate, but if Councillor Bromley says, can we move to the vote, we can do that.
well, you still need to ask council whether they're happy to move to the vote. So we're voting.
Right, scratch that. We're going to have a vote on whether we can move to the vote, please. And then we'll come to the vote on the time.
So just do that on the show of hands.
Can we have a show of hands whether we want to move to the vote? Thank you. Can we move to the vote on motion B, the protection of Derbyshire's green spaces from pylon development, please? What?
Just ignore it. Just ignore.
I won't comment any further, I don't think, on that. Right, the motion's approved. Right, so we've now got a motion to extend council by 1 hour from now?
Yes.
From now, because the closing time was delayed.
Sorry. We need to be clear about what the extension is.
Right.
Is it from
Are you proposing an extra hour from now or an extra hour from when we should be finishing at 17:08? From now or from now? So we have a proposal and a seconder, I believe, for an extension of 1 hour from now, so we would finish at 17:46.
so that needs to go to the vote.
And can we have a vote, please?
That could be shown.
And yourself have a responsibility for getting through the agenda items. We don't have the questions from last time, which is fine as a matter of proceeding, but we haven't had supplementary questions on those actually, and we can't just knock this off the agenda again. I don't want to be awkward about this, but it's your responsibility to get us through that. I'd just like to be aware, what will your response
well,
be?
we're voting on whether there's going to be an hour extension, which hopefully we'll get to those questions if we can move on.
Dealing with
Please.
the business, is that correct?
Sorry?
But if we don't vote for that, it's your responsibility constitutionally to work out how we get through the business, rather than just knock it to the next meeting.
Well, I've been trying to move things on, but thank you. Can we move to the vote, please? Show of hands on extending for 1 hour, and I'll take it to... Oh,
So we didn't have 5 people standing.
we didn't have 5 people standing for a recorded vote. Oh, right.
I didn't see it.
Right.
So this is an hour from.
So you're going to spend all that time writing the names there? Okay, right. We'll have a recorded vote. Thank you.
So this vote, please state for, against or abstain for the question, would you like to extend the meeting by an hour from now? So start with Councillor Abbott. Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Barnes. Councillor Benfield. Councillor Bent. Councillor Bromley. Councillor Brown isn't here. Councillor Bull. Councillor Burford isn't here. Councillor Chambers, not here. Councillor Clark. Councillor Cliff. Councillor Dale. Councillor Elsden. Councillor Ferran. Councillor Ford. Councillor Fordham. Councillor Foster. She's left. Councillor Furness. Not here. Councillor Gates. Here. Councillor George. Councillor Gourlay. Councillor Graves. Councillor Hallett. Councillor Harper. Councillor Hart. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Hatchett. Councillor Hatfield. Councillor Hill. Councillor Hobson. Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Hunter. Councillor Isherwood. Councillor Kinsella. Councillor Lawson. Councillor Mabbott. Councillor McGuinness. Councillor Major. Councillor Matthews. Councillor Millwood, not here. Councillor Monk, not here. Councillor Mausler, not here. Councillor Oxbury isn't here now. Councillor Parkin. Councillor Price. Councillor Robert Dreeney. Councillor Sarah Reaney. Councillor Redfern. Councillor Reid. Councillor Melandra Smith. Councillor Richard Smith. Councillor Snowden. Councillor Somerville. Councillor Sutton. Councillor Turrell. Councillor Warmby. Councillor Wheelton. Councillor Whitbread. Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wood. So that has fallen, so the meeting will not be extended.
Thank you. Moving on to motion C, objection to central government's digital ID scheme. Councillor Price, please.
councils have already voted against this idea from central government. I believe many more will follow suit. The idea? Digital ID. Why have these two councils voted against it? Because it is un-English. What is England? What makes this idea so un-English? England is a village green, a parish church, a post office, the greengrocer, the butcher, a peaceful cricket match, children playing in the woods, a canal boat, a horse rider, a farmer cultivating the land, the local police officer. This is England. Men, women and children have died in their thousands in the defence of this heavenly vision, this blessed island. In the Napoleonic War, in the First World War and the Second World War. All that bloodshed, sacrifice, families wiped out or torn apart, and yet this Labour government wishes to overlook this great sacrifice and impose digital ID, leading to an internal digital and financial slavery. If we do not object to this, we condemn ourselves, our children and grandchildren to eternal slavery. So I plead to my honourable councillors to back this motion in opposition to central government's digital ID scheme. You have heard what England is. Now what makes digital ID so un-English? England is the oldest parliamentary democracy in the world. But the foundations of the English Parliament and our democracy start in the defeat of evil King John of 1215. Dragged kicking and screaming by the lords and barons of England, the king was forced to sign the Magna Carta of 1215, Latin for Great Charter, at Runnymede. This is our constitution, the keystone of our glorious kingdom, the very soul of England. This document laid out the laws of the land, signed by royal decree. I would like to quote the lines 39 and 63 of the Magna Carta. If anyone holds of us by free... No, that's the wrong one, sorry. No free man shall be taken, imprisoned, outlawed, banished, or any way destroyed, nor will we proceed against or prosecute him, except by the lawful judgment of his equals and by law of the land. Line 63, sorry. Wherefore we will and firmly command that the English church shall be free, and that all men of the kingdom shall have and will keep all aforesaid liberties, rights, concessions, well and peacefully, freely, quietly, fully, wholly, and to them and their heirs, of us and our heirs, and all things and places forever. So this is the nature of the English people, our ideas and our belief of who we are. Digital ID encroaches on these hereditary liberties and civil rights, defended by our ancestors. This is what makes it so un-English. This unwritten idea of who we are, agreed by all. The argument for digital ID put forward by the Labour government is to stop illegal migration. Deploying the Royal Navy in the Channel would stop illegal migration. What digital ID is truly about is control. Mass surveillance, an Orwellian society, a true police state. This government goes on to say we'll have access to our money, as if banks and physical cash doesn't exist. Their recent claim is that we'll have access to services. You only have to look at China and the deployment of their digital ID and social credit system. For example, if you jaywalk across the street in Hangzhou, Xinjiang province, bear in mind China has the most CCTV cameras in the world. With the use of facial recognition, the government identifies the offender and automatically deducts monies from said offender's bank account in the sense of a fine. If you use Weibo, China's Facebook equivalent, to slate the Chinese government, you are instantly restricted in movement liberties. That is to say, you cannot travel by plane, train, taxi or ferry. All this is executed via digital ID and a social credit system. I feel that if we, the people, offend the government, access to services will also be restricted or denied. Movement restricted, freedom of speech restricted, our liberties restricted. This digital ID is a gimmick of a weak Labour government. Why should the average liberty-loving Brit be imposed with digital ID when we are not the offenders, but rather the government and those that hate our Magna Carta? My partner is of Italian descent. My children are olive-skinned. And as an avid fan of Latin, I shall leave you with this closing statement. Diet stepem toiam maledeco domini quiesama. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Smith. We have got 11 minutes to finish this motion. Councillor Major, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I do support this motion, not quite for all the same reasons. I feel I have to declare that I feel like I'm British, but to some people's much annoyance, I hold quite traditional liberal views about freedom of the individual to make their own choices in life as long as they're not harming another person. Freedom to make decisions about their sexual orientation, freedom to make decisions about how they live, how they bring up their children, what they do in the bedroom. And I fear what doing things like digital ID brings around that. It brings around it something of state control. The fact that the state has a means of controlling what you're doing. And we're not here to serve the state as residents of the United Kingdom. We are, the state is here to... it had to happen to me. So, I do feel that the point about totalitarianism and the fact that you have totalitarian states like Russia and China where people, the digital arena is allowed to extend in a way to control members in the population to think certain things, I do think is dangerous because we're always at risk of a government coming in of the far right or the far left and using the tools that others have put in for malicious means of control. And I think we should therefore fight against such things. One of the things that does concern me about the motion that's in front of me is I am really interested to know what the civil liberty groups he wants to work with. I don't know if it's Amnesty International or Liberty or the local group that came in earlier. So I'll be interested to know which liberty group he is talking about and that we're going to start working with. But yes, in reflection, we support this motion, but it's about protecting the individual and not somebody who has not committed a crime or done anything wrong should not be expected to prove their innocence and to prove who they are at a drop of a hat.
It's closing at 8 minutes past because we were late starting. Will you still speak?
Carry on, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
It was this one.
it was the other one he was a bit late to. Therefore, Chairman, we are very supportive of preventing digital IDs. It's not a new idea. It was an idea of the Blair government many years ago, and it's been brought back the moment they've got back in control. We see them in Europe and the use of stop and search to stop individuals on the street and the ability then for them to be told to present who they are. I think it's wrong as a society. I think we have to have just cause to be able to stop somebody, to be able to ask them to present who they are, and to be able to prosecute. So it is in minds to support opposing digital ID. I do think it will be a detrimental impact to residents' civil liberties. Not quite for the same reason Councillor Price explained it, but because we are individuals and we are here, individuals aren't expected to serve the state, but the state to serve them. Thank you, Chairman.
Put under 14.1, standing orders. J, that the question now be put.
I second. So again, this is moved to the vote to decide whether we've had sufficient time to debate it.
Okay. I appreciate that we've had very little debate on this, but in the interest of having a vote before the meeting's closed, can we put that to, do I need a seconder on? I'm too tired. You've got a seconder, yeah, thank you. Can we put that to the vote that I need to put this to the vote that we vote on it? Yes. Show of hands then, please. Are we going to put this to the vote? Thank you. What's something? Did you? Right. Okay, we've had a show of hands, so we're going to move to.
You can ask who's
Is anybody against? Yes. You said you were supporting. Oh, right, you want to talk more. Yes. Okay. Right, sorry. It's been a very long day. Abstentions? Can we now move to the vote then, please? And that is carried. We have 5 minutes for member questions. Councillor Fordham, do you wish to bring your question forward from the last meeting, October?
Has he got a supplement?
A supplementary question for Councillor Redfern, please.
Am I dealing with the questions today or the questions previously?
From October. Item 15.
Question to Councillor Graves regarding...
How many questions?
Sorry. So I've got, it's for Councillor Redfern, but yes, this one here. Yeah, it was for from Councillor Fordham, and it's, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Graves? Yeah, it's not got a number against it, sorry.
Can I just check, Chair? We have to deal with the previous business that fell at this meeting.
We're trying to.
No, I understand. Are you content that we have enough time to do that constitutionally? You have to close it today.
Well, we haven't. We've got 4 minutes, so we're not going to get through all these questions.
That's why I asked it earlier.
I'm advised that...
the meeting with us unconstitutionally not dealing with all those questions.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We will close the meeting, having not dealt with the questions at this meeting.
Yes.
A question to me?
No, that's not a question to you. It's a question to me about...
I thought we were on questions.
Yeah. Would you like to put your question to Councillor Graves?
In the light of your response... No, Chair, I'm not going to play the game.
Okay.
6 months. And 3 hours should be long enough to do this business. But we've got 2 councillors who just love the sound of their own voice. And here's a saying for you. A wise man speaks because there's something to say. A fool speaks because he has to say something. Everybody else deserves to go as well.
This isn't a point of order. Thank you. I'm going to close.
You've got
3
minutes. So you've got Ed Fordham, Councillor...
Before going to your second question. The next one, Councillor Fordham. Councillor Buffett.
So the next...
The next question I'd get to is Councillor Bromley. Did you have a supplementary question for Councillor Hill? No, we're on question 5 now. Councillor Fordham didn't wish to put his questions. Yep, you're right. Supplementary.
No supplementary question. I'm just pleased that there was some clarity on the situation.
Right. Councillor Hill, have you got the question in front of you to respond? Councillor Hill, that was... No? So you were asking for clarification or something? No? You weren't? Okay. I am going to close. So, thank you. We've tried pretty hard to get through this. I appreciate the concerns that we've got. We have got 2 minutes less. I might talk for 2 minutes. Thank you. I appreciate the concerns that we've got over these questions that haven't been raised. I'm advised that they can be put in writing and we'll get a full response. I'm struggling to pad that out for another 2 minutes. But yes, if anybody wants to raise a point of order to close before I close officially, but that is the position on the questions. please put them in writing and they'll be responded to. Councillor Wood, please. Councillor Wood, can you switch your microphone on, please?
I believe I've raised this before, but the clock on this system is wrong, and that's after you've rebooted it. Thank you.
That's not a point of order, but you're correct. The clock is wrong. We're going on my clock here, which is now 17:07. Councillor Gourlay, please. Oh, right. Yes, you have a point. Sound of your own voice.
Yeah, my point of order is that for 2 meetings now, we've not had members' questions. We've not been allowed to ask supplementary questions. Now, this meeting is to hold the administration to account, and you in particular are not allowing time for that to happen.
I reject that. My position is to adjudicate. We had a motion to extend and it was rejected. It was rejected. Whether that time would have been adequate to get through. We need to consider how we go forward, as has been said. 3 hours should be perfectly adequate to conduct the business of the council. There's primary business that we did, and there's secondary business, which is the motions and questions. Many of us have busy lives, children to look after, etc., and we should be trying to get this meeting done in 3 hours. Thank you. Councillor Dale, please.
This though, and when we did previously extend meetings, they never went on for more than half an hour or so at a time. The problem we have now is we're not going to stop submitting questions because it's our responsibility to hold the administration to account, as it is for those councillors over there. So all we're going to do is end up building these things up, and it's going to take longer and longer. So we might as well find a solution.
I appreciate your frustration, and we,
and I don't take this out on you because I don't think this is your fault. I think this is an administration who doesn't want to answer questions.
I think we want to get done in the 3 hours and give everybody a chance to debate in that. We're now over time, so I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance. I wish you a very happy Christmas and a safe journey home. Thank you.